Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight, it was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump just continues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you. This is Bettor Off Dead, college football. Week 4, we'll get into college football in a bit. I have 4 plays, as usual. I feel like I almost intentionally do that, but it's just kind of the way that it worked out. I don't know. I'll give up 4 plays. We went 1-2 today, even though we were sure to go 2-1 today. And, of course, I didn't give out a play in Iowa, and that was a winner. So that was not a play. I didn't have it in my pick 6, pick 7, whatever. Should have just done it. Fuck me, I guess. We absolutely were about to be 2-1 in the baseball plays. Though Baltimore got there in the first 5 innings. That was fine. They won the game outright, too. So Yankees suck, whatever. That was good. Good in every way. Houston lost. I mean, nothing you can really do about that. Brian Wu, he just beat us. He was good, whatever. Just couldn't get that one done. Miami and Texas, fuck you, dude. Fuck you. You have a game that's 1-1 at the end of the 9th inning, and it goes over 8. What the fuck? Fuck Major League Baseball. Fuck the ghost runner rule. I'm so fucking sick of this, dude. Like, that game was so far under the total, it was over. And if I had gone first 5 innings, it would have been a winner. It was 1-0 until, like, the 7th inning. It was an easy under. The game was over. I'm like, all right, we went 2-1 today. That's it. Oh, no, wait. It goes into extra innings. And then Miami scores 3 in the top of the, or scores 2 in the top of the 10th, so it's 3-1. Okay, that's still fine. Just don't allow 2 runs to Texas. Texas can't hit anyway, so you're still going to have the game go way under. Oh, no, wait, Texas does the worst thing possible, and they tie the game, and then it goes more innings, and then it winds up getting to like 10 runs in 12 innings or some bullshit, because every fucking inning has the ghost runner on second. You start with a runner on second. Fuck you. I hate it, dude. A game that should go way under just soars over the total just because of the fucking ghost runner. I don't even know what to say anymore. They have to get rid of this fucking rule. It's a COVID relic. I don't know why they even put it in the first place. It makes no sense. It has nothing to do with a fucking virus. It doesn't make the game more entertaining. It's not even fucking baseball. Fuck you. Jesus. Yeah, DJ, what's up, man? Nate, what's up, man? You're not going to like what I have to say about most of that, I will say. You might like what I have to say about that game. We're going to get into it. I am definitely going to talk about, I guess I'll talk about all of those games if you want. I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about NC State and Duke, but it is a North Carolina rivalry, so I guess I have to. Rant over. Let's get into this bullshit. College football. I mean, college football has been decent so far. It was good for me last year. But here's the thing, man. Like, the years that I had that were really good, like, the first year that I did this show, college football was, like, my only losing sport. And then I have, like, a bad year last year, and college football was one of my best college football seasons. I had a huge run in college football last year. I believe we're up in college football this year because the last couple of weeks have been good. Let's keep it going. Week 1 was bad, but each of the last 2 weeks were pretty good, I think. So let's keep it going. I think we're only slightly up, though. Let's keep it going, man. So yeah, I talk about all the big games, of course. We'll just go right into it, man. Noon on Fox. This is bizarre to me that there's a noon game in Utah, like noon Eastern. When the fuck does this ever happen? This game is going to be at like 10 a.m. in Utah. When does this ever happen? What is this, high school football? When does this ever happen? I don't get it, dude. Like, the only time I can remember a football game being that early was like high school on like Thanksgiving, because high school was always like Friday nights. I would go to the games. My high school was actually a football school, football and soccer. We didn't have any we weren't like a football powerhouse or anything like that, but in the region we were like a football school. And like I can remember the only like really early football game was like the one on Thanksgiving morning or whatever. I don't know, man. This makes no sense, but it's number 17 Texas at number 16 Utah. Both teams are undefeated. They're both 3-0. This is a Big 12 conference matchup. This is a big game, man. Texas Tech put up some ridiculous offensive numbers so far, but I think we have to dial it back a little bit on Texas Tech so far. Yes, their offense is good. Yes, they're averaging like 59 points a game or 57 points a game or whatever it is. They haven't really played anybody yet, okay? They played Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State. I know they're an FBS team, but Kent State, really bad. Oregon State, also I have to check my audio levels, I guess. Oregon State was the only FBS team Texas Tech played so far, and they blew them out, which was kind of expected. Oregon State, not a good team. They're in the orphaned, Pac-2 now, or whatever the hell it's called. So I don't think this is impressive. So this is a big-time step up in class for Texas Tech here, man. This is going to be by far the best defense that Texas Tech is playing so far this year, and it's going to be one of the better defenses they faced this season. And Utah has the better defense over Texas Tech. So this is kind of an offense versus defense type of thing here in this game. Utah, on the other hand, I don't think they played a particularly difficult schedule yet either, but they did beat UCLA, and then they beat CP. That's not good. They beat Jeffrey Epstein. No, that's Cal Poly, an FCS team, and then they beat Wyoming. This game might also mean maybe a little bit more to Utah, though, because this is actually their FBS home opener. They haven't played a home FBS game yet, so the crowd's going to be there. It's going to be crazy. Utah does have the better defense. I prefer defense over offense. This is close to being a play for me, actually. I'm not making it a play, but it was close to being a play on Utah, if that wasn't obvious. I like Utah. If you saw my preview show, I liked Utah coming into the season. Utah, they have some more, they just have more, continuity this year, man, because last year it was all about, who was that quarterback they had last year? It was just hurt all the time. You never knew when he was going to be back or when he was going to be playing. I can't even remember his name. My mind is just slipping on it, but he's gone. So Utah, they just have more continuity now, man. They know who their quarterback is. And I thought it was going to be Wilson, who was the backup last year, but it's Dampier, and he's doing a decent job, but he can run the ball as well. He's kind of a dual-threat quarterback, and Utah, their offense is still, I think, at least slightly balanced, but they're they're a defensive team, man. And the thing about Utah, they're one of the only physical teams in the Big 12, which is kind of why they have somewhat of an advantage playing against these teams, because most of these teams are finesse teams, and that includes Texas Tech. I know Texas Tech with the NIL, they went out, they got some big players, whatever, good players. I'm still going to go with the defense over the offense, man. The public likes to do the opposite. The public is going to see, oh my God, Texas Tech puts up 1 million points, and they're this is a very close ranked matchup here, and Texas Tech is getting points. It looks, it looks pretty tempting to take Texas Tech as the underdog. You got Morton as their quarterback. He absolutely lit up Oregon State. The only reasons he didn't really put up more stats in the other two games that they had were probably because he just didn't play that much because they were blowouts. So they probably took him out. I still like Utah, though, man. Utah, you're getting a decent price on them, actually. They're down from 4.5 to 3.5. You might even see a 3 out there. 54% of tickets are on Utah. I kind of thought the public would be on the Texas Tech side, but it still does look like it's a bit of an anti-public play anyway, because Utah does have more of the cash on them, 64%. That is, Cam Rising. Thank you, Nate. Yeah, that was his name. Why did I forget that? Yeah, that was his name. Mr. Always Hurt. But yeah, Rising is gone. It's a new era for Utah. They've been my pick to win the Big 12, so we'll see what happens with that one. But yeah, I think I closed the scores tab. But yeah, I think Utah is the right way to look in that game. I'm going to skip some of these mismatches. I mean, I guess I'll talk about Oregon State, Oregon real quick, even though this is a mismatch. 0-3 Oregon State, baby, against 3-0, number 6 Oregon. I'm only talking about it because it is a rivalry game. I believe this is the Civil War. Is that the name of this rivalry? I forget. I think the winner gets a platypus, because it's hilarious, because the platypus has a duck bill for the Oregon Ducks and it has a beaver tail basically for the Oregon State Beavers. So the winner gets a platypus. Yeah, totally makes sense. The platypus, probably the weirdest animal in existence, Frankenstein of an animal. I believe it only has one hole too. It's a monotreme. It has one hole for reproduction, shitting, and whatever, and pissing, whatever, and not eating, I guess, because it has the bill that I don't even know, man. But yeah, it's a fucking whatever. It's a weird fucking animal. It looks like somebody took pieces of other animals and sewed them together. And yeah, maybe that's what God did. Maybe he was just wasted when he created the duck-billed platypus. I don't know. But in this game, Oregon doesn't really need style points at this point, man. They don't need to cover by margin here, so I actually probably would lean to Oregon State in this one. Oregon, they did start Big Ten play already. They got an easy win at Northwestern last time, although I don't think they covered in this game. Northwestern sucks. I don't think Oregon covered in this game, man. I don't know. Where's the point spread? Where do I see it? Here it is. Yeah, it was 24.5, so yeah, Northwestern actually covered that. But again, Oregon, I think they're in kind of get in, get out mode right now, man. Even though this is at home, they got bigger games coming up, and they have the biggest game on deck, which is Penn State, number 2 in the country, and it's going to be a rematch of the conference title game last year, which Oregon did win, so it's going to be a huge game for Penn State, but it's a big game for both teams, so I think Oregon might not really totally focus on Oregon State, but for Oregon State, this is one of their biggest games of the season, man. They're 0-3. They lost to Texas Tech last time. Texas Tech is good. Oregon State actually has not played any FCS teams, so all their games have been against FBS teams, so at least there is that. Maybe some of them are BS teams as well, though. Cal and Fresno, I don't think are really that good. Oregon State, they're not a good team, but this is basically like their Super Bowl, because I think they pretty much know. I mean, they're in like a conference that isn't even a conference, so winning this doesn't really matter, even though they do play Washington State at the end of the year. This is their big game, man. Like, they're probably not going to a bowl. Nothing's probably happening for them, so I think they are going to be focused on this. Sure, it's a complete mismatch, but again, Oregon doesn't really need to show up here. The line's already down from 37 to 34. 87% of tickets, 72% of the cash on Oregon. I would take the points with Oregon State if I was going to play that game, which I won't, but that is what I would do. I don't know. I'm skipping some of these games that are just less interesting. We get to the 3:30 p.m. slate on ABC, which is Auburn, Oklahoma. Somebody can, if somebody knows, because we had John, our Tennessee fan, in the chat last week, who probably is pissed about the outcome of that game, which is probably why he's not back. I hope he's alive, because he knew that the College Game Day was going to be at Tennessee. I never know where College Game Day is. I know it's going to be either one of the ESPN games or one of the ABC games. It might be this game, Auburn, Oklahoma. I'm not entirely sure, man. But it's a big game. Number 22, Auburn. Number 11, Oklahoma. It's an SEC game. Both teams are undefeated. Big-time game, man. It might be even a little bit bigger for Auburn because it's revenge for Auburn. But is it? I mean, yes, Auburn lost to Oklahoma last year at Auburn, and I was particularly pissed about that because that was a game where I believe I had a play on Auburn in that game, and Auburn was winning by multiple scores with about 8 minutes left, and they blew the whole game. So you can find my video on that where I gave out that play and ranted about that loss. That was not fun. That should have been a win. So, yeah, it's revenge because Auburn did lose at home to Oklahoma, but it's kind of weird because Oklahoma's quarterback who won that game last year was Jackson Arnold, and he's Auburn's quarterback now. So is he playing for revenge against himself? He's on the team that he beat last year. So what do you call that? Is it revenge? I don't know. Very, very strange situation. But what that does mean is that Jackson Arnold, he's not going to really be intimidated, I don't think, going to the place where he used to play, even though the crowd's going to be against him this time, but he's used to playing in Norman, Oklahoma at least. So maybe that kind of makes this a little bit less bad of a spot for Auburn. And by the way, this also isn't their first true road game, because I talk about when a team hasn't played a true road game since last year or whatever, that first true road game can be pretty difficult. But Auburn did start the season by winning at Baylor, so they do have a road game out of the way. And they didn't play particularly well last week against little brother South Alabama. I talked about that on the show last week. I said I thought South Alabama would cover. They did. I think Auburn was just looking ahead, man. It was a look ahead to this big game here against Oklahoma. So South Alabama, they step it up for a game against Auburn because it's a little brother versus big brother in-state situation there. So, yeah, there are definitely reasons. So Auburn might be more focused here because that game just doesn't really tell you anything, because I really think Auburn just didn't totally show up there. And because they didn't win by that much, they probably are thinking, well, we need to refocus here. But it's not like they needed to be told to focus anymore against Oklahoma. Oklahoma will also show up focused. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And Oklahoma was my only loss on Saturday last week. I gave out Temple on the show. That was the only play that I lost on because I thought it was a bad spot, man. Oklahoma was coming up that big win over Michigan, win against a huge opponent, huge name, and they had the SEC opener at home coming up this week against Auburn. So I thought it was a sandwich spot, a weird spot going to Temple. Temple was putting up some offense too, and it looks like Oklahoma has improved their defense, man, and that's what you need to do in the SEC. Oklahoma coming over to the SEC, they were not really a defensive team. In the Big 12, more finesse offense. That's kind of what Oklahoma was, but the last few years, they've kind of bolstered their defense. And holding Temple to 3 points, Temple, as I said, their offense was on fire coming into that game. So that was a good defensive performance from Oklahoma. And their offense is on fire, too. Like, they started to run the ball a little bit more last week with Blaylock. And they have Mateer. And Mateer can actually move around with his feet, too. Mateer, who used to be on Washington State, he's been pretty good as their quarterback so far, too. So this Oklahoma offense is pretty balanced. I do still pretty much think that Auburn does probably have the better defense, though, because they're SEC. I mean, they're like full-on SEC. Oklahoma's still kind of improving their defense. I do think you're getting the better defense, getting points with Auburn here. And Auburn does seem to be playing a bit better this year so far. I think last year they kind of underperformed, too. I think they were better than they looked last year. This year they're kind of getting it together. They have a new quarterback for us, as I said, Jackson Arnold, but he's kind of experienced because he was on Oklahoma. I'm going to have man, this is a tough game to figure out, man. I guess I would slightly lean to Auburn here, even though usually when you see a matchup like this between two ranked teams, the public's tendency is going to be this is going to be a close game, and it looks like 6.5, 7 points is kind of a lot of points. So the public kind of has a tendency to go with the underdog here, but it looks like they're not here because I think they're just impressed with what Oklahoma's doing so far. And yeah, it does show me something that Oklahoma, as I was going to say, in that bad spot last week against Temple, they still showed up and won easily. So yeah, that shows you that Oklahoma might not even be prone to like lacking focus in some of these letdown spots. But again, I mean, I don't know, man. It could be a couple too many points in this particular one. Auburn, I know they don't usually go to Oklahoma, but for Jackson Arnold, he's not going to be intimidated by that, I don't think. It does mean Oklahoma will be facing a quarterback that kind of know his tendencies, but they still don't really know. I mean, he's in a new system, right? He's not running Oklahoma's system anymore, so Oklahoma still has to kind of figure out what Auburn's system is doing. So it's not like they can just shut down what Arnold is trying to do necessarily just by knowing his tendencies. It's always tough for me to gauge that, like who has the advantage when it's a quarterback facing his former team, but he's going to be pumped up for it, man. He gets to play against his former team in the place where he used to play. So, some of the people that show up are going to be Arnold fans. Oklahoma's up from 6 to 7 here, 71% of tickets, 72% of the cash. I don't know if I would read that much into a 1% difference, though, between the cash and the tickets. I'm thinking that Oklahoma, to me, it looks like they're the public side. I mean, and I don't want to always lean against the public, but I think you want to do it most often because I think more often than not, the anti-public side will be the side that comes in. Not to that high of a degree, but more often than it doesn't. So, Nate, you like Mateer? Yeah, he is good. I'm going to lead to Auburn in that game, though, man, to the Arnold side. And Auburn does still have what's their, they have that really, really good wide receiver there. I forget his name, but I don't want to spend too much time on each one of these games. But yeah. Number 13, Ole Miss and Tulane. These teams are both 3-0. Ole Miss is ranked 13th in the country. Tulane, this is a program that's really dramatically improved over the last few years. They don't have their quarterback from last year anymore, which is Darian Mensah, who was at Duke. And Tulane did just beat Duke last week, so that was a big game. They beat their former quarterback. This is also a big game, though. So the question is Tulane going to be in any sort of letdown spot? Because they did beat Duke. They beat Mensah, their former quarterback, at home. They beat the Society of Nerds, Mensah. Tulane, this is still like the biggest game left on their schedule, arguably the biggest game on their entire schedule, until, we're talking about like maybe winning the conference or whatever. This is Ole Miss, man. They're going to face an SEC team. So Tulane, my guess is they're still going to get up for this. I don't think you really could possibly be in a letdown spot when you have a big game like this coming up. The question is, can they maintain that effort 2 weeks in a row? That's really what you have to gauge. Ole Miss, I think they got to be taking a little bit of a step down this year because, they don't have Jackson Dart anymore. It does look like their quarterback is actually out Simmons. So that's interesting. So that might kind of change this handicap a little bit. I don't know when it was that he got hurt, but they had Chambliss come into the game. Not Shambles. Chambliss. He played last week, and he looks like he kind of lit it up against Arkansas. But let me see. Did he? Trinidad Chambliss. Jeez. Simmons, I guess, got hurt almost immediately. So Chambliss played the entire game. So then the question kind of becomes, is this even an injured player spot at all? Because, this handicap, this is why I'm not going to give out this game, man. There are a lot of factors in this game that you have to try to figure out. Is this an injured player spot now? Because Chambliss played almost the entire game last week. So you consider that to be really, was that the injured player spot? I don't know, because of course he came in, Arkansas had not, they had not game plan for facing him. They had game plan for Simmons. And now Simmons is out, and we don't know if he's going to play in this game or not. So it's interesting, man. So if Simmons comes back, then is that a reverse injured player spot? I mean, it's crazy. So the injured player spot, for people that don't follow me, basically what happens is the first game that, like, your starting quarterback, for example, like a player that really, really matters, first game that he's out and doesn't play, the line moves to accommodate for that, and usually it overreacts, and the team actually overreacts in the other way, knows that they have to step up their game without that player, so you actually get value playing on the injured player's team in that one game. So that's what the theory is. And then the reverse of that is the reverse injured player. When that star player comes back, the line also gets affected, obviously, and that team is going to have less value on them when that happens. Because especially if the team did well with the backup or whatever, when the starting quarterback comes back, the team can kind of take a little bit of a step back, realizing, our star quarterback is back. Maybe we just mentally, we don't have to focus as hard, potentially. Also, there's maybe a chemistry issue if you're kind of used to having that guy not back anymore, and you have to get used to him being back. So you tend to get value fading that team when he comes back. But the question is, if Simmons only had one throw in that game last week, if he comes back this week, does that mean Ole Miss has to get used to him again? Does it just effectively become a reverse injured player spot? This is very difficult to gauge, man. I think you got to check to see if he's playing or not. If Chambliss is going to play again, then I don't know, man. I still don't know if it counts, if that would make this an injured player spot or not. It's crazy to try to have to figure this out. I think it is a bad spot for Ole Miss, though, because they did just beat Arkansas. They're coming off 2 SEC wins in a row, actually. They got revenge at Kentucky because Kentucky actually gave Ole Miss their first loss last year at Ole Miss. So I think Ole Miss was focused on trying to win that game. They did. They beat Arkansas last week. But Arkansas, I mean, it's a pretty big game because it's, a decent team in the SEC. But up next, they got LSU, man. I mean, that's going to be a huge game against LSU. One of their biggest games on the entire schedule. So this is a non-conference game. It is a bigger game for Tulane. So overall, I think if you want to try to simplify the handicap, I do think you probably got to lean to Tulane slightly here. The money might be disagreeing with it. It's hard to say. Mississippi Ole Miss is down from 12.5 to 12, 60% of tickets, 63% of the cash on them. So hard to gauge if that slight cash percentage difference matters or not. I mean, you got to figure Ole Miss is going to be the public side here, even though Tulane is 3-0. Everybody knows Ole Miss, ranked team, SEC team, pretty much where everybody's going to gravitate in this game. Even though we know Jackson Dart's not there anymore, it's still, Lane Kiffin offense there and whatever. But I would slightly lean to Tulane there, but that's a difficult one. Nate got to get prepared for this one on CBS and Paramount Plus at 3:30. Michigan, number 21. At Nebraska. Michigan 2-1, Nebraska 3-0. Big Big Ten matchup here, man. This game, this is not going to be one of my plays, obviously, because I'm skipping the games that are my plays, and I'll give them out at the end. I'm going to give out 4 plays. Michigan hasn't really impressed yet, man, so that's a little bit of an issue here. We know Michigan, they're trying to get used to having a new quarterback here. They got Bryce Underwood, who I think is a freshman, but like a highly recruited freshman. So got to kind of figure that he's going to be good at some point, and he did pretty much light it up last week against Central Michigan, but that's Central Michigan. I mean, Central Michigan sucks, but it's better than what we saw from Michigan in the first game. Like, they should have probably blown out New Mexico, but it was Underwood's first game. Who really knows why Michigan didn't really succeed in blowing New Mexico out there, which they probably should have done, because New Mexico, I think they're kind of in like a turnover phase here, kind of rebuilding and whatever. And then Michigan, they lost at Oklahoma, but again, with a freshman quarterback, although he really didn't do well in that game. Oklahoma's defense really shut them down, though. But Michigan's defense played well in that game. Michigan does have a good defense. Michigan didn't play too badly, but that was a difficult spot, having to go on the road to face an SEC team that's pretty fucking solid this year. Then, Michigan did have their best game last time out, just absolutely annihilating Central Michigan. Although Central Michigan's not good, but Central Michigan, they do try to get up for a game against Michigan, and Michigan just pounded them. Michigan, good defense, but still, we haven't really seen that much out of Michigan yet, and we're still dealing with another road game here. This is going to be their Big Ten road opener here. Underwood's still their quarterback, not totally used to this. I don't know what happened with their ground game last week against Central Michigan, though. You'd figure with a huge lead like that, they'd just be running it a lot. I don't know what happened there with Haynes not getting on the board there as far as the high rusher, but maybe they just used like multiple different rushers. Who knows? I'm not going to dig that much into that, but might be a difficult spot for a freshman quarterback to have to go into another hostile environment like this. Didn't really do well the first time. Oklahoma really shut him down. Both of these teams are good defensively, Michigan and Nebraska. They're both better defensively than offensively. Nebraska hasn't really shown much of anything yet either, though. Their best opponent was Cincinnati. They hung on for a win against Cincinnati. I told you I liked Cincinnati to cover that spread in the first week, which they did. Low-scoring game, pretty defensive battle there. And then since then, and that was a neutral site game, though. Since then, Nebraska, I mean, they just absolutely drilled Akron 68-0, and then they put up 59 points against Houston Christian, although that's an FCS team. Akron is probably not very good this year either. I think they're one of the worst teams in the MAC, if I were to guess right now. They're not looking very good right now, so not a whole lot we could take away from that. Nebraska looked pretty good in those games, but Michigan's faced a more difficult schedule just because they did have a road test against Oklahoma, so Michigan is a little bit more battle-tested. Of course, Nebraska still has the Pat Mahomes wannabe and Dylan Raiola here. He's going to be their quarterback again coming into this one, but he is the more experienced quarterback in big games like this. This is another difficult game to read, man. I'm going to guess that the money is kind of coming in on Nebraska here. I believe it was last time I looked. Yeah, it is. So Michigan's favorites. The odds makers are telling you they do think Michigan is still the better team as a favorite on the road here. They're down from 1.5 to 1. Public kind of on the Nebraska side, 68% of tickets, but 75% of the cash also on Nebraska. That's a big enough discrepancy. We do see the line moving that way that I do think that does mean the money is coming in towards the Nebraska side. I mean, I guess I'll slightly lean that way, but I don't really have much of a reason for it other than the market read, man. I mean, I think it's a defensive battle. I mean, it's that plus I guess you're getting the somewhat more experienced quarterback here, but Michigan is more battle tested, so I worry about it a little bit. I was thinking this game was more of an under game, man. I mean, the total's low, but it's up from 44 to 47 now, so the money's come in on the over. 65% of tickets on the over, 93% of the cash on the over, so the public isn't even on the over as much as the money. I was kind of thinking this would be more of an under game, though, man. You got Bryce Underwood going on the road again, facing a good defense again. Could be a little bit difficult for him. Michigan plays solid defense, so they could probably, I think, hold Nebraska's offense in check, too. Again, when these teams have actually stepped up in class to face like an actual good defense, the games have been pretty low scoring. So I kind of think this is an under game. That's probably the way I would lean in this game, but I'm not really a huge college football totals guy, though. But I think that's probably preferable to the side. So, Mr. Cover, what's up, man? Thanks for checking out the show. We've got some Twitter views here, Twitter action here. You have a parlay on Missouri and Miami. I assume money line. You said money line. Your money line parlay, 2 favorites. I will talk about both those games. You guys, nobody's going to like what I have to say about the Miami game because you probably know what that means. I mean, you know how I do this. As far as the money line, I mean, that's a little bit of a different story, but because if I don't love Miami to cover, though, I don't really love them on the money line either. And you know me, I don't love parlays just in general because the odds makers, I mean, the books, they want you to do parlays. That's why they push them so much because it looks very enticing to take, I get these 2 favorites, and if they both win, I get like an underdog price basically, or a cheaper price or whatever. It looks really tempting to do that, but the odds makers, they know what they're doing, and they never give you good enough odds, and the results are independent of each other, so I never recommend that. I recommend just doing straight bets and that's the grind, though. I understand that when you're, especially if you're just doing this for fun, you want to kind of do it where you just want to put a little bit of money up and try to win a lot and try to get lucky. So I understand that, and it's fun too. So do what you can afford, obviously. You know what I mean? If you want to put fun money on parlays and whatever, hell yeah, do it. Hopefully you win, and you're, in that case, you just have to be okay with I'm paying for the entertainment value of it. You know what I mean? But I've been doing this for 18 years, and if you want to really profit, long term, just really focus on, I gotta make money here, man. I think it's just you gotta just do just straight bets, not gay bets. Parlays are gay. Gays. No. You want to just do straight bets, and you just have to overcome the threshold of 53, 54%, and that's kind of the name of the game there. Missouri versus South Carolina, I have less of a feel on that game, but I will talk about that too. Carson Beck going to Steve Irwin, the Gators. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's at least for him. He's not. At least for them, I guess that means they're not going up against any Rays, any Stingrays. Steve Irwin, man. I still remember when he died. I was playing World of Warcraft in college at the time, and that's how I found out that he died. Everybody started kind of shit posting in the World of Warcraft chats. I'm what the fuck? Oh my god. Yeah, that was kind of a weird way to find out about that. It was the precursor to Twitter. I think Twitter didn't quite exist yet at that point. Facebook was really new back then, but that was the precursor to all the news coming out on Twitter. It came out on World of Warcraft first, man. Yeah, that was wild. But again, you guys are not going to like what I have to say about that Florida-Miami game. You know me with my contrarianism. NBC Peacock at 3:30. We do also have Purdue and Notre Dame. Number 24 Notre Dame because they're 0-2. Purdue is 2-1. Yeah, well, I mean, come on, man. So Notre Dame, I mean, everybody's talking about, Notre Dame is 0-2. They shouldn't even be ranked at all. Yeah, okay. I'm not even a fan of Notre Dame. I don't think they're as good as people think they are typically. Last year, I thought they were a bit overrated. I was kind of leaning against them once the playoffs started because they had faced a pretty easy schedule. They're not in a conference. But this is a situation where I think Notre Dame right now is probably about as undervalued as you're ever going to get them because I think they're going to win. I said they're going to win 4 of the next 5 games, and the only game that I think they're going to lose is the one at Arkansas. We'll see if I'm right about that. But Notre Dame, yeah, they're 0-2, but I mean, come on, man. They lost by 3 at Miami, and they have a freshman quarterback who was playing his first game on the road with Carr. Or actually, I don't know. I don't know if he's a freshman. I think he was their backup last year or whatever, but he was going into a hostile environment his first year as a starter. And then they lost by 1 point to Texas A&M. I know that was at home, but still, Notre Dame's played basically the most difficult schedule. And by the way, I forgot to mention Texas A&M, Texas Tech. When we talked about Texas Tech, they've played one of the easiest schedules so far. Just throwing that out there as far as liking Utah. Notre Dame, they've played one of the most difficult schedules. I mean, they played two ranked teams that are definitely solid. They're two teams I called out in my college football preview show, saying that I thought they had decent shots to win their conferences this year. And I liked both of them. Decent shots to maybe make the playoffs. But now, the stock, again, it's as low as it's going to get on Notre Dame here, man. If you look at the power ratings, guys, like, you have ones, like, the normies are saying one thing, right? Like, the normies are, like, listening to, like, these, these rankings guys are terrible. And they're basically saying that Notre Dame at 0-2 shouldn't even be ranked anymore. And then you have the power ratings guys saying Notre Dame is, like, still, like, one of the top 10 teams, man. And that's how they're going to be lined. And those are the people that have the money at stake, man. Dudes that do power ratings, those power ratings get used for sports betting and, like, the books setting the lines. The books have huge amounts of money on this. So the books know more. They have way more money at stake than the rankings makers, man. So if you have a big discrepancy between what the rankings makers are saying and what the odds makers are saying, the odds makers are more likely going to be the ones they're the ones that you want to trust more so. Notre Dame is not that bad, and they should probably win this game fairly easily. The only thing that I would have as far as, like, maybe hesitating here is that Notre Dame is coming off a big win. I get it. It could be a hangover spot. And that set up decently for them because they did come into that game off of a bye. I know they lost the game, but it's a tough game regardless, man. Texas A&M, they're a good team. I'm actually shocked that the game was that high scoring, though. The defense, I thought it was going to be a defensive game. That's crazy that it was so high scoring. And it looks like the game went into overtime with that score, and it didn't. I mean, you're looking at Mike Elko and Freeman for Notre Dame here. Elko for Texas A&M. That should have been a defensive game. Doesn't make sense why it wasn't. Notre Dame did play better defense against Miami, and we know Miami's offense is very capable. So I think this is a bit of an outlier. Notre Dame, their defense is better than it looks so far. Carr is going to get going a little bit more, and he doesn't have to shoulder the load. I mean, Notre Dame, they run the football. They play solid defense. Yeah, their defense probably not quite as good as it was last year. I don't think Notre Dame's going to make the playoff at this point. But I think they're still playing, man. Like, I don't think they're going to be in, like, a dream crusher scenario yet, even though they lost two pretty significant games here. But my issue with Notre Dame, even though I think they're definitely underranked right now, severely underranked, my issue with them right now is they're coming off a big game, and they're playing an in-state little brother, which is Purdue. Purdue hasn't been that good recently. You know Purdue, they're going to get up for a game against Notre Dame. That's the only thing. Obviously, they will because they're a little brother in the state of Indiana, so they're going to want to show up for this game. I believe Notre Dame absolutely destroyed them last year, too, if I'm not mistaken. Was that last year? Maybe I'm wrong. I guess I'm mistaken. I guess that didn't happen. Wait. No, it did. Yeah, 66-7. What am I saying? Yeah, there it is. Early in the season again. So it's kind of revenge for Purdue as well. I mean, Purdue, not good last year. Notre Dame just totally embarrassed them at Purdue, no less. So this is a game that Purdue has circled for sure. Purdue, obviously nowhere near as good as Notre Dame. I don't care if Purdue's 2-1 and Notre Dame's 0-2. I mean, how can anybody look at those rankings, look at those records and, think that those records matter when Purdue's wins are against Ball State and Southern Illinois, who's an FCS team. Ball State, pretty bad MAC team. And then Purdue actually was fairly decent, to be honest, last week against USC. They only lost 33-17. That's not that bad. USC, pretty solid team. So Purdue, I mean, possibly flying under the radar a little bit. Notre Dame, though, obviously, I mean, again, they've faced extremely difficult opponents so far. They're battle-tested for sure. I just think the spot isn't that great for Notre Dame, but I do think they're being severely undervalued. Notre Dame's a massive favorite, obviously. Wait a minute. They're 0-2, and they're favored by 24.5 points against a 2-1 team. What? Notre Dame's actually down from 27 to 24.5, though, and the public is still actually playing Notre Dame in this one. So there is all that Notre Dame hate out there. Notre Dame shouldn't be ranked, but the public still thinks that Purdue sucks, and they're not really wrong, but 74% of tickets, only 62% of the cash on Notre Dame. The money is coming in against Notre Dame, so the lean here is still to Purdue plus the points, just because I think it is a huge game for them. It is revenge for last year. I think that type of revenge does matter when it's a team that just absolutely destroyed you on your home field last year. Purdue always going to get up for the in-state big brother situation, so I have to lean to Purdue, even though I do think Notre Dame is severely being underrated by the public right now. In this particular game, that isn't really the case, but obviously I expect Notre Dame to win the game, but I'm not sure I expect them to cover. I would lean in the opposite direction as far as covering. Temple at Georgia Tech. We'll talk about this. I think Georgia Tech, they're in kind of a classic letdown spot. It's not going to be one that it's not going to make my card here, but I kind of considered it. Georgia Tech is up to 18th in the country, and they might be a little bit overranked at this point because everybody saw them beat Clemson last week, man. I think it's like you got to kind of dial it back a little bit, man. The rankings makers they've overreacted again, man, where now Clemson isn't even ranked and Georgia Tech is ranked 18. But we just saw Clemson was favored on the road at Georgia Tech. I know Georgia Tech won the game, and Clemson was probably favored by a little bit too much, but I'm not ready to say that Georgia Tech is actually better than Clemson. I think it's close, but I don't think Georgia Tech is actually the better team. But I said I leaned to Georgia Tech last week. I gave that out as a lean. They won outright. It was a big win for them. Could be a letdown spot here, man. They're staying at home. That was a huge win, one of their biggest games of the season. They get to play basically that and the Georgia game are their two biggest games of the season pretty much, man. So they got that game out of the way early. They won. They beat the team that was basically the favorite to win the ACC coming into this thing. Huge win for Georgia Tech. I think they could take a little bit of a step back here, man. I know their next opponent is Wake Forest. That's not really an opponent that you necessarily are going to be looking ahead to, but you might when it's Temple. Temple is a lesser conference school, and Wake is still an ACC team at the very least. So this is an ACC sandwich at the very least. It's probably like a barbecue sandwich of some kind between South Carolina and North Carolina. It's a Carolina, barbecue pulled pork sandwich still there. The Georgia Tech is in there. Georgia Tech, they're good. I like Haynes King. I told you I thought Georgia Tech was going to be in the running to potentially win the ACC this year, and I think they are. They got a solid quarterback, but Temple, they could score, man. I know they did it against bad opponents, UMass and Howard, but they put up a lot of points. I know they got totally shut down last week by Oklahoma. Oklahoma looks like they're a solid defense. Temple, they have a decent offense, I think, at this point. That's my gauge on this situation. And this is going to be a big game for them. They did play one road game already at UMass. I know this is a much more difficult road environment to go and play at Georgia Tech, but I think Temple will be up for this game. This is their last remaining big game against a ranked team, so it's their last game to kind of try to impress before conference play starts. It is a second difficult game in a row, but Temple got kind of just embarrassed last week against Oklahoma, so they weren't in that game at all, unfortunately for me, because that was my only loss on Saturday. But, it is two tough games in a row for Temple, but my read on this, I would lean slightly to Temple, but the money's kind of disagreeing with it. Georgia Tech's up from 24 to 24.5, 56% of tickets on them, 68% of the cash coming in at Georgia Tech. Slight disagreement from me on that one, on where the cash is on that one, but that one's certainly not going to be one I want to get involved in. We're in the 7 p.m. slate now. We do have South Carolina at Missouri. South Carolina ranked 11 last week, and they plummeted completely out of the rankings. I gave out Vandy as a play on the show last week. And by the way, I didn't even realize Sellers went down with a concussion halfway through that game for South Carolina. So South Carolina's quarterback went out with a concussion. I still think Vandy had that game completely in hand anyway, though I think Vandy would have won regardless. But South Carolina lost Sellers in that game, but I don't think we have an injured player spot here because I think he is going to play. It looks like even though he was in concussion protocol. And that would be a huge, huge difference for South Carolina if he wasn't playing because he's basically their entire offense, man. Sellers, he's a solid quarterback, and the backup quarterback that they have that they were using is a wide receiver that they converted into a quarterback. So South Carolina, they got a pretty iffy quarterback situation here. So there's a huge drop-off from Sellers to the backup. I think based on what the line is in this game, it looks like Sellers is going to play. Is he going to be 100%? I don't know. But South Carolina, they were not deserving of being ranked. They were not deserving of being ranked 11, that's for sure. I told you how overrated they were. Through the first two games, they had the same number of non-offensive touchdowns as offensive touchdowns. Like they were scoring all these like kick return touchdowns and defensive touchdowns. I mean, it's just insane. That's totally unsustainable. You can't do that. They actually got outgained by South Carolina State, which is an FCS team. I know it's a little brother in the state of South Carolina, but that is just putrid that South Carolina got outgained by them, even though on the scoreboard you wouldn't know it because they scored so many defensive and special teams touchdowns. It didn't look like it. And then they didn't play well against Virginia Tech either. They got outgained by Virginia Tech, and I believe they got outgained by Vandy, although, again, Sellers was out of the game. But South Carolina has yet to have the yardage advantage in any game. Oh, no, they did. My mistake. They did. They actually outgained Vandy. My mistake. I apologize. That's insane. I never would have thought that they did. Hey, they finally did, and it was a game where Sellers didn't even play for half of it. So, yeah. Man, football is weird. But anyway, they do have to go on the road to Missouri here. Sellers looks like he is going to play. But this is their first road game of the season, man. I just mentioned that. That's a difficult spot to be playing your first road game of the season at Missouri. Missouri is a solid team. I know they haven't played as good of a schedule as South Carolina, though. South Carolina did play Virginia Tech and Vandy. Missouri, their only big conference opponent they played so far was Kansas in the border war. So South Carolina has already played an SEC opponent last week too. Missouri has not played an SEC opponent yet. They just crushed Louisiana last week. Missouri, their quarterback this year is Pribula, who was the backup for Penn State last year. I'm not sure how good he really is, though, but Missouri, I mean, this is a game they're going to show up for. It's on ESPN. It's their first SEC game. It's between two much, much lesser opponents, so you know they're going to show up for this game against South Carolina. If South Carolina does somehow manage to win this game, they will probably be ranked again. But South Carolina, I don't think they're even a top 25 team, man. Like, the power ratings guys have them somewhere around 30th, I think, in the country. So they were way overrated at number 11. Missouri ranked number 23. I mean, I think they're probably not being I think they're being ranked probably somewhat appropriately. And it looks like Sellers must be playing because Missouri was an 11-point favorite. And I actually think the line went up to even maybe close to 13, 14. But now it looks like Sellers is playing, so the line is all the way down to 9.5. Maybe it's 10 because it's 9.5 with juice. So if you do like South Carolina, I think you got to at least play the plus 10 there. I would be very hesitant to do so, though. 73% of tickets, 69% of the cash on Missouri. Missouri is public. Everybody saw South Carolina just look so bad last week. But again, I'm not sure how good South Carolina even is, so I worry about it. Yes, the market read says the cash is coming in on the South Carolina side. You got to worry about Sellers' health, them being in a spot where they're playing a first actual road game, and Missouri coming off, just a much, much easier game, but they didn't have to put in a whole lot of an effort last week. So, yeah, the market read kind of does say take the points of South Carolina, but I would hesitate with that. I might even slightly lean against it, to be honest. That's a difficult game. I'm going to skip Florida, Miami, as you know. I'm going to give out a play on that game. Oh, boy. Illinois, Indiana is one of the other big games of the week. It's ridiculous seeing Illinois being ranked 9th and Indiana being ranked 19th. I know these teams were ranked at some points last year, but this is just ridiculous. You don't expect a Big Ten powerhouse matchup. You think of, Ohio State, Michigan. You don't think in Penn State. You don't think Illinois and Indiana. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But they're both 3-0. They're both ranked. They're probably both overrated, though, to be honest. I think they're both overranked, but I think Illinois is the more severely overranked team here. This is going to be 7:30 p.m. Eastern, NBC and Peacock, because they carry the Big Ten games here. Illinois, they haven't really done anything that really shows me anything yet. They beat Western Illinois, Western Michigan. I mean, two pretty bad opponents. Western Illinois is an FCS team. And, yeah, it looks like they blew out Duke on the scoreboard. I told you I liked Duke in that game, but look at what happened in that game, man. Duke outgained them 438 to 419, and Duke was -5 in turnovers. So that's why they lost the game. And -5 in turnovers is just insane. I mean, that was the tail of the game pretty much in that game. So that win was not as great as it looked for Illinois. Meanwhile, no, Indiana hasn't played anybody either. They beat Old Dominion in non-impressive fashion to start out the season. They beat Kennesaw State, who's really bad, although we will talk about Kennesaw State in a bit. But they blew them out. So after a very unimpressive showing in their opener where they probably just didn't even show up against Old Dominion, I think Indiana kind of got shocked back into focus because I guess they're 23.5-point favorites. Old Dominion's not that bad, though. I mean, they're an FBS team. They're all right. But Indiana didn't cover. I think they got shocked back into focus, and they just wrecked Kennesaw. Kennesaw's not good at all. They're a pretty new FBS team. And then last week, Indiana even more ridiculously blew out Indiana State, in-state little brother, but an FCS team, 73-0. I don't think Indiana State's that good. Here we go again, 1 a.m, and we got people revving their engines out there. I'm about to flip out and yell at them again. But Indiana, yeah, neither of these teams has really shown us a whole lot yet. I know they're both 3-0. Neither team has shown us a lot. Indiana does have an extra day to prepare for this because they played on Friday. And Illinois, I believe, had a Saturday game last week. So Indiana does have one extra day of rest. So I guess not a whole lot of weight to put into that, but it is something. They had an extra day to prepare for this. This is at Indiana, so they are at home. Indiana, I think at this point they're kind of used to their new quarterback. Like last year, Indiana just all of a sudden became really good. They brought over, I believe, the coach from Ohio, and he brought over Tanner Rourke, his quarterback from Ohio. So they brought some of those guys over last year. Rourke, I think, graduated. But Indiana basically, because they were so good last year, they basically just reloaded. And their quarterback is Mendoza, who was Cal's quarterback last year. And he's kind of just off to the races. He's pretty good, but the thing I like about Indiana's offense, though, is its balance. As you can see here, they have different rushers that do a lot on the rushing side. So they can throw the ball, but they can also run the ball. And that's what you want to see, a balanced offense. You don't want to see one-dimensional offenses. So Indiana, they're a balanced attack, man. Illinois, yeah, they brought back a lot of their players this year, too. They have a lot of returning production. I'm not sure how good Altmaier really is as a quarterback, though. Like, I think Mendoza probably is actually a little bit better. Yeah, Illinois has had some decent rushing games as well, but against the one FBS, or not FBS, or the one, like, big conference opponent they faced, Duke, who's not really that great of a defense. Illinois couldn't really get anything going on the ground there in that game, even though they were ahead in the game, so you'd think they would have been running the ball more. So maybe a little bit of a red flag there. But I think the main red flag in this game is look at what the line is. You have number 9 Illinois, number 19 Indiana, and yet Indiana's up from a 5-point favorite to a 6.5-point favorite, and it's almost 7. So, like, what gives, right? The public is going to see that and say, how am I getting a team that's ranked 10 ranking spots higher as a touchdown underdog? It looks basically so easy to play Illinois here, man. So I would not do it. I would lean to Indiana in this game. And this, again, it might hit a touchdown. So if you want to play Indiana, you got to make sure you lay below a touchdown, man. You got to lay 6.5. The key number is 7, obviously, because a lot of games, well, not a lot, but a decently high percentage of games relative to the other potential outcomes land on the 7. It looks like Illinois is public, 68% of tickets, 68% of the cash as well. We do have a high total as well, 52.5. I mean, both offenses can definitely do damage here, so I'm not going to really disagree with an over in this game. 79% of tickets, 83% of the cash on the over. But I think I like the Indiana side, and if we're getting a lot of scoring, that does help the cause of the favorite, because the more scoring there is, the less each individual point matters, and the easier it is for a favorite to cover a big number. So, yeah, I would lean Indiana in this game. I know Illinois has Brett Bielema there, a former Wisconsin coach. He's their coach. I know he's good on the road. He's been a good road coach recently, but this is a spot where I don't think so. I think Indiana, they're an anti-public home favorite, man, and that is kind of what you want to look for, because you're playing on a team that you know is actually good, and they're being undervalued by the public and potentially by the market as well, you know what I mean, and by the numbers. So that's kind of what you want to look for, man. I don't play enough of those games, and maybe I should be playing Indiana then and go with my own advice here, you know, because, again, when you see a public road underdog like that, you want to be fading it for the most part, fading that team, because you know that means you're getting, yeah, again, like I said, a team that's favored like that against another good team. You know that team that's favored must be good because they're favored against another good team, and you're playing on a good team. You know what I mean? So that's that. Vandy is playing Georgia State. I'll just mention it because Vandy is up in the rankings now. And remember, they got into the rankings last year, and I was saying, oh, Vandy's going to be in a letdown spot now, and I think it didn't totally happen in some of those cases. This is their FBS home opener, though, so I wouldn't really want to fade Vandy here, but they're coming off that very satisfying blowout win against South Carolina, and that was revenge because South Carolina went into Vandy last year and blew out Vandy, so very satisfying win for Vandy, even though I know Sellers went down in the game, but still big game for Vandy, so it could be a bit of a letdown spot here. Playing Georgia State, they're probably not going to totally focus against them. They don't have a big game up next, though, really. I mean, Utah State, I don't think that's really any cause for a look ahead there. So it's just kind of a slight lean for me against Vandy in this one. Georgia State, I mean, they haven't really done anything yet. They did at least battle test themselves playing against Ole Miss and Memphis, but they got pretty much blown out in both those games. So the good thing about Georgia State is at least they got a win last time out against Murray State. I know it's an FCS team, but you want to get that first win out of the way, man. When you're losing, like, everything is just bad, right? When you're losing, like, you have that monkey on your back, like, we have to get our first win, but Georgia State was able to do that. I know it wasn't against an FBS opponent, but still, that'll help you get that monkey off your back. You finally got a win. But again, yeah, I think one of the main reasons that I would hesitate to fade Vandy here is just that it is their FBS home opener. But the money is agreeing with me and coming in on Georgia State, and the line is actually up from 26.5 to 28.5. I know I didn't do that well with some of these leans on these bigger underdogs last week, but of course they were all ones that I didn't actually play either, because I'm just talking about, some opinions on these. 73% of tickets on Vandy, 51% of the cash coming in on Georgia State. So money's coming in on Georgia State in that one. I agree with that. And then some of these games are just total mismatches. I don't even want to talk about some of these. And then we do have the late night game. This is ridiculous. At 11 p.m. on Fox, at 11 p.m. Eastern, Michigan State, who's 3-0. They have to go out to face number 25 ranked USC, who's also 3-0. Tends to be somewhat of a difficult spot, man, when you have a team that's one of the more Eastern teams in the country. They have to go play this late night game out west. 11 p.m. is going to be at the time that the game ends. I mean, that's going to be difficult for Michigan State, right? Like, it's going to end at 1 or 2 in the morning, basically, East Coast time. So it's going to be like 1 in the morning, Michigan State's time, basically. So it is a difficult spot. I talk about how it fucks with your biological clock most when you're an Eastern team going out west to play a late night Pacific Coast game. I think that that's actually the worst biological clock spot, and that it's not a Western team going east to play an early game. I think this is worse because when you're playing an early game, you're doing it, and you get up and you're energized and you're ready to go. The late night game is where the fatigue starts setting in, Michigan State, they haven't played a difficult schedule at all yet. They beat Western Michigan. They barely beat Boston College. They beat Youngstown State, who's an FCS team, and didn't even beat them that impressively. And now they're playing their first road game, and it's going out to USC, where they're still not used to playing, even though I know USC's in the Big Ten now, but it's a difficult spot for Michigan State, man. USC, obviously they're the better team because they're a bigger favorite. They haven't faced that difficult of a schedule yet, but they smoked Missouri State, and we saw Missouri State hanging in that game against SMU, so that makes that win look pretty impressive, really, for USC against Missouri State, although that was Missouri State, I think, their first game as an FBS team, so maybe they were just not ready for it. I don't know. And then USC drilled Georgia Southern, who we don't know how good they are. I think they've been maybe a little bit I thought Georgia Southern was going to be in a good spot in one of their games, and it did not turn out that way at all. So I don't know how good they really even are. And then USC's one game where they didn't look that good was last week at Purdue, which was their first road game. I think USC just maybe they still weren't even paying attention. That first road game was a little bit difficult. So they didn't look that good last week at Purdue. So I think that means they're going to be more focused here. They didn't cover the spread. They were a 20.5 point favorite. Didn't cover. And sometimes when that happens, especially if it's a closer game and it's a scare, the teams will tend to do better. It wasn't really a scare, though, in that game. It was pretty much in hand for USC. But still, playing a game that just wasn't that good, sometimes you'll refocus in the next one. So I'm going to slightly lean to USC because I do think they are the better team here, but the money is kind of disagreeing with it at this point. They're up from 15.5 to 19, 79% of tickets, only 77% of the cash on them. I kind of worry about that, though. So initially the line did move. It moved through the key number of 17, so it looks like maybe they're just conflicting opinions on this one because I don't think it was a setup when it went through 17 and all the way to 19. I mean, maybe there were some guys chasing Like chasing basically means, so I'm going to try to explain this here now. So what I mean by setup is that professionals, as soon as the line comes out, the books are accepting only lower limit bets at that time, so you can't bet as much. But the professionals know that they garner respect by the books, so they know that they can bet, and the books will probably move the line a little bit, thinking that it's a real move because they don't know if it's a real move or not. And the bettors know that too. More engine revving out there, man. These people, they should be in jail, man. I'm telling you right now. It's so ridiculous. It's residential. It's 1 a.m. Like, seriously, stop. You know what I mean? But anyway, the setup means that it's not the real move. Like, they do it just to move the line to get a little bit more value. And then when the limits get raised, then they come in with their actual bet at the limit, the bigger limit, and come in on the other side. But in this case, I don't think that's the case, because I think they would have tried to just push it to 17 and then immediately hammered it back down, and you wouldn't see the number anymore. This went through that number all the way up to 19. So I think what happened is it was a real move on USC, and now that it's hit 19 or gone through the 17 and a half, at least I think maybe some other professionals see, like, they might think there's some value on Michigan State. So I think there are conflicting opinions on this game. That's the way that I read that market, if I'm reading that correctly. 79% of tickets, only 77% of the cash on USC. Again, obviously, it's not going to be a game I'm going to recommend to play on. Let's go through some of these other games real quick, and then I'll do my if you guys want me to talk about any of these other games that I have not talked about, I will. I try to hit some of the games that are just more interesting, and then go to my best bets. Maryland, Wisconsin. I mean, that's one of the early slate games. It is a Big Ten game on NBC and Peacock. Wisconsin coming off a game against Alabama where they got their first loss. I mean, it was a road game against Alabama, so I mean, what do you expect? Wisconsin's still not really that good, but I think they're maybe improving a little bit, and they're trying to do what they used to be doing, which is play physically, run the football, play physical defense, because they got away from that. And they had a coach come in and try to implement an air raid attack, which makes no sense with Wisconsin. So I think they're trying to get back to their roots. They are coming off that difficult game against Alabama. And if that game was close, I would probably be recommending them play against Wisconsin here, because they do have a huge game against Michigan coming up next. Although I think it's actually after a bye. I think it's in 2 weeks. Yeah, so they have a bye next week. So if they're playing Michigan, especially next week, and this Alabama game was closer, it would be a sandwich for Wisconsin. They'd be coming off playing a huge effort game. They'd have a huge game up next. Maybe wouldn't focus on Maryland. Maybe that'll still be the case, but again, because they got blown out by Alabama and the Michigan game isn't for 2 weeks, I'm dialing it back a little bit as far as wanting to fade Wisconsin in this one. And Maryland, I mean, they're not really good. They haven't shown anything yet. It was Wisconsin's 2-1, Maryland's 3-0, but Wisconsin's actually the better team. So the line might look a little bit misleading with Wisconsin being a somewhat large favorite here, even though Maryland is the 3-0 team. Forget what else I was going to say here. What else was I going to say about Wisconsin and Maryland? Wisconsin, man, I lost my train of thought. I wish I remember what it was. Wisconsin, I mean, they'd won their first 2 games before that. What the fuck was I going to say? Now it's really, really going to bug me, man. Oh, yes. This is their Big Ten conference home opener, at least. So, and actually, it's their conference opener in general. So this is the first Big Ten game of the schedule for Wisconsin. So I think that might have you dial it back a little bit as far as fading Wisconsin as well, because the crowd's going to be there. It's their first home Big Ten game, their first Big Ten game. It is the first Big Ten game for both teams, but I think it means both teams are going to show up focused. Maryland hasn't really shown us anything yet. I mean, they beat FAU, Northern Illinois, which I think I was on Northern Illinois in that game, if I remember correctly. I forget what my reasoning was on that. I think that was one of my plays. I think they covered for us. And then Maryland beat in-state little brother Towson last week, although they're an FCS team. It does mean they had an easy game. So Wisconsin had a much more difficult game last week. So Maryland might come into this game a little bit more fresh and rested. But again, it is a game where I think both teams are going to show up. And Maryland misleading 3-0 because they haven't played anybody good yet. And this is their first road game, so some hesitation there too. First road game, I don't usually want to play on a team that's in their first road game, so that makes it more difficult as well. a lot of factors to consider here, man. Maryland having to go to Wisconsin, where Maryland, on the East Coast, it's a little bit of a difficult trip to have to go to Wisconsin. I don't even know how many times they've done that since they've joined the Big Ten. It's not too many. Wisconsin, this is another one where I actually think that there might be conflicting opinions on this game, because I've actually heard I've heard conflicting opinions amongst some of the professionals that I listened to as well. Wisconsin went up from a 7-point favorite all the way to 10. That's pretty key. That's a move through the 7.5, and it kept going. But now at the 10, they have 55% of tickets, only 50% of the cash on Wisconsin. So it looks like once they did the 10, money started coming back in on Maryland. This is a very, very difficult read for me, man. My initial lean in this game was actually to the Wisconsin side in this one. I might want to just stick with it, kind of like stick with your gut instinct. It seems like I don't do that enough. So that might be the way that I would look in this one potentially here. So yeah, I mean, maybe slightly. It would be against the market read at the 10, though. And if you wanted Wisconsin, you probably had to lay like a better number than that. Although the 7, it looks like it was never really a 7 at -110. It looks like the best you probably could have done was 7.5 anyway. If you see like a 9.5, I mean, maybe you could consider maybe taking that shot there. Slight lean for me to Wisconsin, though. So against the market read in that one. I'm just going to mention Virginia Tech fired their coach, and so did UCLA. So I talk about the fired coach theory as well, where when a team fires their coach because they're not doing well and whatever, it could spark the team, and you want to look to potentially play on that team in the first game where they have a new coach, especially if it's a coach that they respect more, because like a couple of different things could happen, right? Like the team could get up to play for that new coach because maybe they just didn't like the other coach and they want to play harder for this new coach. Usually when it's in the middle of the season like this, you're going to see some guy who was already in the organization get elevated to the head coach role. So at least it's a coach that already knows the system too. The players know him. Maybe they like him and they're more ready to get pumped up and play for that coach. But also the other thing is the players want to prove that the reason why the team was losing was the coach and not them. So I know it's selfish, but the players also kind of have that in mind. Like we want to prove that it's not us that we're bad, it was the coach. So it sparks the team. But unfortunately, Virginia Tech's playing an FCS team this week in Wofford. So it's not a game that I even want to really do anything on. I don't even think UCLA is playing this week. I don't think I saw them on the schedule at all, right? I think they might have a bye this week. So UCLA, keep that in mind, though, I guess for next week. If they don't play this week, it'll be their first game with their new head coach next week. And I don't know who they're playing, so it might be a spot to look at. But I just figured I would briefly mention that. These are going to be long-ass videos again because they always are with me. SMU, TCU, this is a big Texas battle here. TCU had a bye last week, so something to keep in mind. But there are kind of conflicting ways to look at that. Or no, they didn't. They had a bye between weeks 1 and 2, or 1 and 3, excuse me. They had a bye in week 2, my mistake. Because I was going to say, well, I'll talk about it because one of my plays actually involves the byes and how those set up. So I'll talk about it when I do that. But TCU, they're 2-0. They beat Abilene Christian last week, who's an FCS team. They're not a bad FCS team, I don't think, but TCU, maybe not that great that they give up 21 points, though. This TCU team, I don't think they have a very good defense. Although, of course, we did see them stomp North Carolina in the first week. TCU, I think they have a pretty potent offense, but their defense isn't very good. And I think that you could say the same for SMU, really, and that's who they're playing here. This is at TCU. SMU, they've played 3 games already this season. They played that game against Missouri State last week. And remember, I gave out Missouri State on the show. They covered the spread for us. SMU only put up 28 points. I think it was a game where they really didn't show up for it. It was a first road game for them. Very unfamiliar venue, Missouri State, because they're a new FBS team. So SMU, it was a good spot to play against them. They played a 2-overtime game against Baylor and fell short, blowing a lead in that game. I think the week prior to that, and they had this big TCU game up next. So in a way, SMU, they're coming off a pretty ugly performance. You could say they're going to bounce back here. It is a second straight road game, but at least this is a somewhat more familiar venue for them going to face TCU here. So I have some kind of conflicting reads on this game too, man. I've heard some professional opinions on the SMU side, and I guess I will agree with that because they are coming off just an ugly game last week, and they're more battle-tested, right? Like, they played Baylor. TCU, the best team they played was North Carolina. I know it's Bill Belichick, but how good is North Carolina, really? I don't think they're that good. Again, this is also a really high total. Like I said, 2 good offenses. 93% of tickets, only 65% of the cash on the over, though with the total, it's 63.5. It's gone up. So it looks like maybe there's some buyback coming in towards the under now. I mean, it seems too dangerous to play the under to me, but that high total, usually when it's high, you do want to look to the over. And I did say that both these offenses can score and defenses are not very good, but yeah, I mean, I probably would not want to really do that, and maybe I would have a slight lean to the over still, but yeah, I mean, obviously it's not going to be a game I'm going to play. And then I would lean to SMU plus the points as well. TCU up from 6.5 to 7, 57% of tickets, only 50% of cash on them. So the market read is saying take the points with SMU plus 7. SMU probably can kind of slow down what TCU wants to do offensively. SMU runs the football more, so they can kind of try to shorten the game, which maybe that's part of the reason why there's some money coming in on the under, because I think it would be beneficial for SMU if the game is actually a little bit lower scoring. So, yeah, they're kind of correlated to the under, even though I kind of like SMU and kind of like the over just as independent, different bets there. But yeah, so yeah, slightly into SMU in that one because they're coming off just the uglier of the two results there. North Texas at Army is kind of an interesting one. This is going to be in the American, it's the conference opener, I believe, for both teams. Yeah, it is. North Texas, I should have given it out as a play last week, man. They just destroyed Washington State. I told you I liked North Texas in that one. Washington State, I thought, was in a bit of a sandwich having to face Washington this week and having pummeled San Diego State the previous week, even though San Diego State's not that good anymore. It was also a weird venue for Washington State to have to go to this North Texas team. And North Texas was coming off almost losing as a big favorite at Western Michigan. So North Texas was coming off a game that probably shocked them back into focus, a little bit of a scare. This North Texas team has a really good offense. They've been putting up a lot of it, and their offense is definitely actually good with Mestamaker as their quarterback. He's making messes of his opponents. He's pretty good, man. This is a good offense. They should be able to score against this Army team, but Army, I mean, they might throw some wrenches into this, and Army is coming out of a bye, I believe. Let me see. I'm looking at North Texas again, my mistake. I think Army's coming out of a bye because last we saw them, they did pull off a big upset, though, against Kansas State. So I'll talk about how the byes work right now. Army, yes, they're coming off a bye, so yes, they do have 2 weeks to prepare for this. I do think they will show up because this is their conference opener. It's at home. This North Texas team is going to compete, I think, to win this conference this year. So Army will show up for those reasons, but Army, they did go into the bye on a good note, and I talk about this. When teams go into the bye on a hot note, on a good note, sometimes they don't use that bye appropriately because it's like, well, you went into that bye on a good note, so what do you have to change, right? You don't have anything to change because things are working, and it's even worse when you're on a win streak, and that bye can kind of disrupt the win streak, whereas if you're a team and you're losing, then I think the bye helps you because you actually use that bye to fix things and figure it out. So that's the way byes work in football, man. It's the way straights work as well. No. So, yeah, Army did go into the bye off of that big upset win at Kansas State, but Kansas State's just really looking like a lost team right now. I don't know what's going on with them. It's still a big win, though, so they did go into the bye on a high note, but in this case, I hesitate to want to actually fade Army because I think this is still a big game for them, and I think they would use that bye to be focused. Army runs the triple option, remember, so it's kind of difficult to prepare for that, and North Texas does not have an extra week to try to prepare for it. North Texas does face these teams every year, though, and in this conference, they face Army and or Navy. Sometimes I think they face both of them, so North Texas is not an opponent that's totally unfamiliar to defending the triple option, though. So it's an interesting one, man. I think the money is actually coming in on the Army side in this one. I probably do lean that way. It looks like North Texas flipped from 2.5 to 2.5 underdog to a 2.5 point favorite here. 79% of tickets, only 55% of the cash on North Texas. So they're a public road favorite here. You can get some points with Army. The total actually dropped. And I think if it's going to be a lower scoring game, it's going to benefit Army because Army, the way that they're going to be able to hang in this game is by keeping North Texas' offense off the field. That's what Army has to do. And they do have an offense to do it. It's a triple option. The only issue is if they fall behind by multiple scores, then it becomes bad for Army because they don't really have an offense that can catch up. So that's kind of the problem. So Army, if you like Army here, you need them to slow the game down and just stay within like one score pretty much, hang around in the game. The total did drop from 54 to 50.5, though, with 80% of tickets, only 60% of the cash on the over. So that does help the Army cause, thinking this might be a little bit of a lower scoring game. North Texas, they just looked too good last week, man. The public's going to see those high point totals and think, oh my God. And like, you're only laying 2.5. You're like, how could you not do that, right? With North Texas being 3-0, I think, right? And Army being 1-1, and North Texas putting up so many points. It looks so easy to lay the -2.5, right? So I think I would slightly lean to Army in that game. All right, what else do we want to talk about here as far as these games? I talked about a lot of these games already. North Carolina at UCF. I heard some professional opinions on the North Carolina side, and I disagree with that. North Carolina, I'm still not impressed with what we've seen so far. I mean, their wins so far after they just got embarrassed on national TV by TCU. They beat Charlotte, who doesn't look good, man. Charlotte, I think, lost again last night, right, to Rice, did they? I mean, they just don't. I don't know why the professional bettors keep betting on Charlotte, man, because they're just losing every game. And then North Carolina beat Richmond, an FCS team, last week. Not impressed, man. And now this is going to be a road game. Yes, they did play on the road against Charlotte, but going on the road at UCF, it's not going to be that easy, I don't think. And this North Carolina defense, they're still not a good defense. I know they held Charlotte to 3 and Richmond to 6, but those are not very prolific offenses. Last time they saw a decent offense, TCU lit them up. I do think UCF is a better offense than what they looked like in their first game against Jacksonville State. I don't know what that was. UCF does have Scott Frost back, so maybe they're trying to readjust to the new coach there. But they put up a shit ton of offense last week, 68 points against NCAAF. I know that's an FCS team. They tend to usually be in the Celebration Bowl for what it's worth. UCF, this is going to be their one of their bigger games of the season, though, man. I mean, they're playing North Carolina. They play some big games in the Big 12, though, I guess, so maybe I shouldn't say that, but they're playing against Bill Belichick, so I think they're going to get up for this game, man. UCF also, they are coming out of a bye. I know I said when you go into a bye and a win streak, that is actually bad. It can kind of hang you over, but I do think they're going to use it to prepare something for North Carolina, man. So in that case, I'm not sure that the bye is really that much of a distraction or that much of a negative for them coming into this one. Although, yes, North Carolina is just playing through, so they do have that advantage. But I'm going to slightly lean to UCF in this one, despite going to the bye on a good note. North Carolina looks like a public underdog here, man, because the public basically they just saw Central Florida barely cover or barely win. I mean, it's a 20-something point favorite against Jacksonville State. Nobody's impressed by what Central Florida's done so far. Not even that 60-whatever point performance. And it might be the Bill Belichick factor, too. But North Carolina is one of those road public underdogs here, which is really not what you want to look for. And we have reverse line movement against it. Central Florida's up from 5 to 7.5. So if you like UCF, you probably got to lay, I would lay 7 or less probably if you want it with Central Florida. I would not want to lay the hook with a 7.5, but it looks like there probably are 7s out there. You could probably find one eventually before the game kicks off because North Carolina's going to get the public action most likely. Oh my God, Bill Belichick is an underdog. Bill Belichick, he's so good as an underdog, right? Well, is he? I mean, how good is he with North Carolina? We don't even know yet. He played one game as an underdog so far. He was an underdog against TCU, and how did that work out? He was a favorite in the other 2 games, so I don't know. 69% of tickets, only 68% of the cash. We have more revving engines outside right now. North Carolina is very public with the line moving against them. So, yeah, I like UCF in that one. I just think it's hilarious, by the way, that UConn is a 21-point favorite over Ball State. UConn played 2 overtime games in a row, but in the first one of them, and they were both on the road, the first one of them they lost as an underdog where they had the game in hand. They almost upset Syracuse. So I mentioned I liked Delaware last week, even though the line had dropped, so I thought there wasn't really that much value on Delaware anymore. I thought that it was good at the 10, but it had dropped to like 8. Delaware just won outright, so it didn't even matter. But that was then a bad game for UConn because UConn was the favorite in that one. So, yes, they played 2 overtime games in a row, but getting embarrassed, they were in a bad spot. So, as I said, they were coming off that other overtime game where they blew a lead as a favorite. Then they got embarrassed as a favorite themselves. So I think that means it's a more focused spot for UConn now, coming off of a game like that. And Ball State is just bad. They beat UNH last week to get that monkey off their back after losing. Yeah, they played big conference teams, Purdue and Auburn, on the road. I mean, that's not easy, obviously. They barely beat UNH. Ball State was only a couple-point favorite in that one. UNH is an FCS team, New Hampshire, although they're not a bad FCS team. But Ball State, still not a good FBS team at all, man. It's just ridiculous to see. Let me see, where are they? It's just ridiculous to see Ball State. Why can't I find Ball here? There they are. It's just ridiculous to see them as a 21-point underdog, or see Connecticut as a 21-point favorite, I mean, against any other FBS team. I mean, that's ridiculous. UConn, a 21-point favorite, 89% of tickets on them, though, 56% of the cash coming back on Ball State. So hilariously, the money's coming in at Ball State. Maybe it is because UConn played 2 straight overtime games. I don't know, though. Coming off being upset like that, I do think you tend to refocus, though. So that's an interesting one. JMU at Liberty would be a big game, which I think is a conference game, right? Is JMU in this conference now? No, they're in different conferences. I don't even know, man. I think they're in different conferences. I think it would be a big game anyway, though, because this is a game between 2 Virginia teams. It's an in-state rivalry to some extent. I don't think it's an official rivalry. JMU new to FBS anyway, so it's not one of these long-standing rivalries. I think JMU actually considers themselves to be the little brother to Liberty, because Liberty's been in FBS longer. Liberty has really not played well so far. They've lost 2 games in a row as a road favorite. They're looking like they're in disarray right now, man. I don't know what to tell you about Liberty. Losing on the road to Jacksonville State and Bowling Green. They have an experienced quarterback with Vasco. I just don't know what's going on with Liberty here. And Dickens as their running back, man. Maybe he should stick to writing overrated novels or something. I don't know. JMU, they're a good team, though, and people might not realize it because they don't have really anything as far as their schedule is concerned yet. They beat Weber State, and then they lost at Louisville, but we know Louisville's good, so it's like, what can you take away from that? Not much. JMU is a team that went into the bye. They had a bye last week, and they went in on a loss, so I think they are focused for this game against Liberty, using the bye to help that. It is Liberty's home opener, though, for FBS. They did play one home game against an FCS team, Maine. So, yeah, I mean, still somewhat of a big game for Liberty as well. JMU coming out of the bye, though. JMU down from 10.5 to 8.5. Those are road favorites. 67% of tickets on them. 63% of the cash coming in on Liberty. So the money's coming in on Liberty, fading JMU. It's an interesting one, man. I think both teams actually kind of have reason to show up here. And Liberty, after losing 2 straight games, is a favorite. Probably happy to be back home. Should be refocused. JMU should have used that bye to refocus as well. So I think it's a positive spot for both teams. So difficult handicap there. What else are we going to talk about here? I'm trying to run through these. You wanted NC State and Duke. Which one of you guys said you're on NC State? Nate, I believe you said that. Big North Carolina rivalry game here between these 2 teams. This is at Duke in Durham. Duke, they're 1-2, and their only win was against Elon, an FCS team, and it was a lot closer than the final score looked. They did not do well in that game. I think it was tied at halftime or something, as one of you guys pointed out when I talked about it. Duke, though, as I pointed out, they played better against Illinois than it looks like. They were -5 in turnovers, so that was just kind of a ridiculous result there against Illinois. And then last week, they didn't play particularly well against Tulane. That was Mensah. Should have been his big game to go play well against Tulane. I don't think he actually played poorly in the game. I think he put up a lot of yards. He did have 3 touchdowns, but they lost the game to Tulane nonetheless here, man. Duke did outgain them, though, so this game maybe slightly misleading that they lost that game. It was a close game, though, statistically and on the scoreboard. So, yeah, Duke, probably not as bad as their record looks at the very least. They've faced, they've had a couple of difficult games in there. And, that Illinois game, definitely misleading result. NC State, they've played a less difficult schedule so far. They played East Carolina. That was a game I lost in week 1. Or was it week 0 or week 1? I forgot. I don't remember, man. But, yeah, they lost, or they didn't lose, but they didn't cover that game against East Carolina. They looked like they were on their way to covering that, and then they didn't score again. So, not great, but NC State is 3-0. It's kind of misleading, though. Like I said, that NC State is 3-0 and Duke is 1-2, but Duke has faced the more difficult schedule. NC State beat Virginia. Virginia, I think, is in kind of a rebuild, and Wake Forest is not good either. I know those are both ACC opponents, but it wasn't that good. Yes, NC State has a little bit of extra time to prepare for this. They last played last Thursday on that Thursday night game where they actually got a scare. To remember, I said I leaned to Wake Forest in that game, and Wake Forest was winning by double digits in that game, and then they never scored again. And NC State came out of there with a win. That's a bit ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, how do we even handicap this game? It's pretty difficult to figure this game out. The money seems to be coming in on the NC State side a little bit, so there you go, Nate. The market seems to at least agree with it. Duke's just sitting at a 3-point favorite, 54% of tickets, 51% of the cash, so it looks like the public is slightly on Duke with less of the cash coming into them, which maybe it's just the name recognition and knowing that Duke has kind of been the better of these two teams recently. I mean, I don't really see why the public would come in laying a favorite that's 1-2 against a 3-0 team, though. To me, it seems like NC State would be kind of a misleading public side, but it looks like they aren't. So, I mean, my read on that is that I would actually slightly lean to Duke personally, but I'm kind of disagreeing with the market there. So I just think Duke is a little bit more of the battle-tested team right now, and they look a little bit worse than they actually are. So I think the records are a little bit misleading right now. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. Although NC State may be taking a step forward with CJ Bailey there because he's got some years under his belt now. Again, we will see. NC State does have the extra rest, but again, I don't know how helpful that is when they played well in that game. Although, actually, maybe they didn't play well, right? Because it was against Wake Forest. But I was going to say, when you go into that extra time off, though, that almost kind of functions like a bye, that extra time off. You've already won all your games. So, again, it could be a little bit of a momentum stopper having that extra time off. So, maybe that's not necessarily the greatest thing. Although, you know they're focused on this Duke game regardless, though. I don't know if it's a revenge spot. These teams, I assume, probably play every year. Let me see. I'm looking at whose schedule am I looking at? Duke's. Duke did beat NC State on the road last year, so it is a road revenge spot for NC State at the very least. So in a game like this, that is a little bit of a factor. NC State probably remembers they lost at home to Duke last year, so maybe they will come and show up with some focus in that one. West Virginia at Kansas. I think this is a bad spot for West Virginia. They just beat Pitt. They bounced back from that loss on the road against a MAC team, Ohio, although Ohio's a bit of a better MAC team. West Virginia then pulled off the upset against Pitt late in this game in overtime. This is a big win, man, in the backyard brawl. The backyard brawl had been gone for a while, and I think it's actually, I thought it had only been back for 2 years. It's actually been back for 4 years, and it's about to be gone again for the next few years. So West Virginia won the last of these backyard brawls in a while, and they actually evened the score in the last 4 of these. Each team now has won 2 of them. It was a big win for West Virginia, man. As an underdog, they scored late to tie the game. They tied the game right at the very end to send it into overtime, won dramatically. Big win there for West Virginia. Now they have to go on the road to face Kansas. It's a pretty unfamiliar environment for them, and they have a big game against Utah next. I know this is it is their Big 12 opener, though, so I'm not going to quite want to fade them here, but it looks like somewhat of a difficult spot for West Virginia here, man. And Utah is at least a ranked team as well. They should still be focused to start conference play here. This game's on FS1, by the way, if you want to watch it. Kansas might have a little bit of another extra edge, though, because they are actually coming out of a bye, and they actually lost going into the bye. They lost the border war at Missouri, and I thought they might cover in that game, which they didn't. Difficult game, though, at an SEC opponent. Kansas hasn't really shown us anything yet, although they did easily beat Fresno and Wagner, which doesn't really tell us a whole lot. So this is going to be a more difficult game than that. But West Virginia, they're kind of in rebuild mode right now, man. I mean, they got Rich Rod over there as their coach. He might redevelop that program, but it's not going to happen instantaneously. Kansas is obviously going to be a big favorite here. I guess the question is it justified? It's a bit of a difficult spot for West Virginia here. Kansas is they're down from 13 to 12.5. The money's coming in on West Virginia. 75% of tickets on Kansas, only 54% of the cash. Some of that might just be because Kansas hasn't really shown us anything yet, right? Whereas West Virginia, they at least did beat Pitt already, but Kansas did face the most difficult opponent that either team faced so far, which was Missouri. And they did have this bye, some extra time to try to prepare things for this. Kansas does still have Jalen Daniels there, quarterback, not Jaden Daniels, to try to give them some continuity there because they had him last year as well. We'll see what happens, man. Boise at Air Force, I'll talk about briefly just because I've heard some professional opinions on the Boise side here. Boise, nobody's seen anything from them yet. People saw them get blown out by South Florida in just an ugly game. I think they were -4 in turnovers, all fumbles. So I don't think there's really anything you take away from that, from Boise there. Then they played Eastern Washington. They haven't played now in 15 days. They played on a Friday. Then they had a bye. And they haven't played since then. So I think they're going to be extra prepared for this, man. This is going to be their conference opener. And Boise, they can still win the conference, obviously, because they haven't played any conference games yet. And I think if they win the conference, I think if they don't lose any games in the conference, there's a chance that they can still make the playoff. So that is actually still in front of them. So they're not dream crushed yet. They did beat Eastern Washington handily going into the bye, but that's, I know it's a kind of a like geographic rivalry to some extent there because the teams aren't that far away from each other. But going into the bye on a good note like that, I don't think matters that much. I think they're going to spend the extra time preparing for Air Force here, man, because this is their conference opener. They have a game against App State up next, which is a non-conference game, which is weird. That will be their FBS home opener, though. But Air Force, having the extra time to prepare for that is good because Air Force runs a triple option. But Air Force is the worst of the service academies. I think they're lesser than Army and Navy right now. They're not very good. And these service academies, they're not allowed to use like the NIL, I think, or the transfer portal. So they're going to be taking steps further and further back. I think that's not good. I think it was kind of surprising to see Army and Navy be so good last year and recent years. I think they're going to get worse. But Air Force already has, man. So, and Boise, they face Air Force every year anyway, so they're kind of used to facing a triple option anyway. So I don't think that's going to be a detriment to Boise at all. Air Force, they just stink, man. Boise needs to come out and show something. Air Force, they did just lose to Utah State last week. The one thing that I hesitate about here is that this is the home opener for FBS play for Air Force. It is their conference home opener. Of course, it is Boise. Boise's going to have a target on their back. So Air Force is going to want to show up for that game. So I'm not going to play it, but I have heard some opinions on the Boise State side. I guess I'll probably agree with it. They're up from 10 to 11. They're public. 82% of tickets. Public doesn't want anything to do with Air Force. But 85% of the cash. I do think it is somewhat of a mismatch there, so I don't disagree with the Boise State side there. Justin, what's up, man? Justin, our Missouri State cameraman here is what Justin is. That's right. Justin, I believe you were doing camera work at that game. It was an interesting game. I watched some of it on TV. My play, I gave out the play plus 28, man, and it was pretty easy cover. SMU only scored 28 in the entire game, and it probably should have been maybe even closer than it was because I know Missouri State was driving. It looked like they were going to score and retake the lead when they were down 14-10. I didn't see what happened at the end of that drive. I had it on at my parents' house, and there was some stuff going on. I missed what happened. I was like, what the fuck did they do? Turn it over? I don't know, man. But we did get the cover, so I'm happy about that. South Alabama, I could see being in a bad spot here. I apologize if I'm boring you guys, by the way. I'm going to get to the best bets. I know it's a long slog, but I get autistic. I like talking about this stuff. South Alabama, as I said, they had actually two pretty big games in a row. They played Tulane really close a couple weeks ago at home, and I believe they were a pretty big underdog in this one, and they played Tulane close. I think Tulane might have been looking ahead to that big game against Duke. Tulane was a 13.5-point underdog, and South Alabama almost won that game. Then they hung pretty tough with Auburn last week. They only lost by 16, although I think they were losing by more than that, and they scored again right near the end. But South Alabama, big game for them against Auburn, man. It's a big in-state little brother situation, and that's the biggest opponent they face all year. Now they're coming off of that, and they face Coastal Carolina, who looks like they're kind of in a rebuild. They lost Vasco. I don't know how good Coastal Carolina is at all. Probably not that good. So South Carolina might not totally focus on Coastal Carolina, although they are the better team. They do have North Texas up next, which is a big opponent, but North Texas is actually an out-of-conference game. So the reason why I hesitate to really want to fade South Alabama here, even though it looks like to me they're in a hangover spot here, is that this is their conference home opener. So I know it's not against a very good team, Coastal Carolina, but they might still show up for it just because of that. Coastal Carolina, I mean, they're in an embarrassed situation here. They got shut out 38-0 by East Carolina last time out in what should have been a game where maybe they would focus a little bit. Coastal Carolina maybe should have, because it's a game against another one of the Carolina schools, but it was just a bad game for them, man. So maybe they will want to bounce back a little bit here. It looks like they switch quarterbacks too, so I don't know what's going on with Coastal Carolina's situation there. The running back is Simpkins, I guess, who that's what you call the guys who simp e-thoughts or something like that. Simpkins. Another name for a simp. Maybe he is one of them. I don't know. But it's an interesting setup there in that game. South Alabama is extremely public, though. They're up from 14 to 16, 95% of tickets, only 92% of the cash. So I would probably fade South Alabama in that one just because it is still a game and they're coming off that huge game against Auburn. Although, again, I do have my reservations about it. We'll talk about the Apple Cup because this is a long-standing rivalry between Washington and Washington State. Washington is now in the Big Ten, though, and Washington State is orphaned in the Pac-12, or the Pac-2 now. So I do think Washington State, I think they consider this game to be bigger at this point now. I mean, they're basically the little brother now because Washington got to move on to the Big Ten. Washington State got left behind. Now, the only issue with that does make it a bigger game for Washington State, but the only issue with that is this is actually revenge for Washington because I think this Washington last year, this was their first season in the Big Ten. And what happened in, I think, a neutral site game here somewhere in the state of Washington, I guess, Washington State actually beat them. So Washington State did have that, like little brother mentality in that game. Oh, you left us behind. You went to the Big Ten. You think you're big? Washington State beat them. So they did have that mentality last year. They got the win. So now it is a little bit of a revenge spot for Washington here. But how much is Washington really going to care about revenge against what's still an orphan in Washington State? I don't know, man. Because if you look at Washington's schedule here, yeah, it is still a rivalry. Yeah, they still might get up for it, but they had a bye, and they went into the bye, as I talked about, on a hot note. They beat Colorado State, who's not really very good this year, and they beat UC Davis, putting 70 points up on UC Davis, who is an FCS team. Washington just annihilated them, and then that's what they went into the bye with. Now they play Washington State, which is going to be their first road game for Washington, although they're used to playing here in Pullman, Washington. This is going to be at Washington State. But look at who they have next, man. Washington plays Ohio State next. That is a big game. So I really don't like the scheduling spot. I know it is revenge from last year, but I really don't know how much Washington might care about this game. Again, they went into the bye on a hot note, so it's like, what do you have to fix? You don't really have anything to fix. Washington State, I know they're not good, but they're coming off that blowout loss to North Texas that I talked about, and you got to think they were looking ahead to this Washington game. I think the fact that they played last week might actually help them coming into this game because they got annihilated, and it was in an unfamiliar venue, too. Now they're coming back home. I think they were already prepared for this Washington game, to be honest, man. So I think they want it more every year at this point just because Washington left them behind. So I would lean to Washington State in this game, and that is the way the money is coming in. You're getting 3 touchdowns on this one. Washington's up from 20.5 to 21. 80% of tickets on them, 58% of the cash, though, on the Washington State side. So, yeah, I lean to Washington State in that one, man. Western conferences are so screwed up geographically. Not really the Western conferences, but the Big Ten and the ACC both are spread out like across the entire country now, which is totally ridiculous. And of course, when that first started, those teams definitely have difficulty adjusting to these new venues and having to do this travel they're not used to. As they get used to it more and more, it'll be a little bit easier, but I think it's still not going to be that easy. Arizona State, Baylor, this is a big Big 12 matchup, a big Big 12 matchup here. Baylor, they took a loss, in that tough game opening the season against Auburn, an SEC team. They were pretty battle-tested because they played Auburn and they played SMU, and they were able to come back and beat SMU. And then they had a nice, easy matchup last week against Samford, which was kind of like a bye. So Baylor coming into this game, it's going to be a big game. It is their home opener. against the team that won the conference last year. So they'll show up for Arizona State. But Arizona State, I mean, they're going to show up as well. And they did face Mississippi State on the road, so they face an SEC team as well. So they're not a whole lot less battle-tested. They're coming off beating Texas State, who I think is not a terrible team. I know they've been in bowls recently, at least. Going out on the road to face Baylor here. Might be a little bit of a better spot for Baylor. Looking at the schedule there, coming off that easy game against Samford. But Arizona State's game wasn't that much more difficult last week. So both teams are going to show up here. And then I kind of start leaning towards the better defense when that happens. I know this is a conference that's not known for defense at all, but you're looking at Baylor, who has the better offense. They returned their quarterback from last year, up against Arizona State, who did also return their quarterback from last year. But Arizona State is the better defense of these two teams. So it is more or less defense versus offense. You know, I lean towards defense when that's the case, when I think, especially like when I think both teams are going to show up for a game. Baylor's down from 2.5 to 2 here, so the odds makers are kind of telling you Arizona State's the slightly better team here because Baylor's not getting full home field here. Even though I did expect Arizona State to be a little bit worse this year than they were last year, and Baylor to actually be a little bit better. But in this case, I actually kind of lean to the defense. Even though coming into the season, not that high on Arizona State, higher on Baylor to some extent. But in this game, I think Arizona State, better defense, you're getting points, I think is probably the lead in this one. 64% of tickets, 51% of the cash on Baylor, so they're public with less of the money coming in on them. So that's probably the way that I would look in that one. And then anything else before my best bets? I don't think so. I don't think I really give a shit about most of the rest of these games. Let's do it, man. So that was the breakdown. I forgot to throw the graphic out there. You can hear my glass cold brew glass here clinging around there. Let's do it, man. Let's go to the best bets. The cooler. Hey. It's the Fonz version of Toad or something. I don't know. The cooler version of Toad there. Let's go into it, man. The best bets. We're going to have 4 of them. As I mentioned, you're probably not going to like too many of them, maybe any of them. The first one up, I know we've lost a little bit of line value on a couple of these, so I know, bear with me. We don't get the best number on these, but I like the spot. We're going to roll with it anyway. The first one up, we're going to go with this ugly MAC team, Miami, Ohio, plus 2.5. You're going to be thinking, what the fuck are you doing, man? What am I doing? Kind of like when I played, if you remember, I played Miami, Ohio last year in one of the somewhat earlier MAC games of the season. When Miami, Ohio, I think didn't even have a win yet, or they only had 1 win, and they were up against a team that had like the inverse of that and only had 1 loss or whatever. But I was like, Miami, Ohio was actually the better team because they had faced a way more difficult schedule. I don't know if you guys remember that. And it was an easy win or whatever that game was. So it was like a very, very misleading. Teams just had very misleading records based on who they faced early in the season. And I think we're getting something similar to that here, man. And this is UNLV at Miami, Ohio. I like Miami, Ohio in this one, man. UNLV's coming in. Yeah, everybody thinks UNLV's the better team. I mean, they were ranked. They're in the Mountain West. They competed for the Mountain West. They were in the Mountain West title game last year. Everybody's going to see, oh, yeah, UNLV beat UCLA. But how impressed are we with that when UCLA has looked like total ass and now they just fired their coach? I don't really know, man. This UNLV team, they're still trying to get used to having new personnel here. They're under Dan Mullins now at coach, which, you know, I'm not a fan of him, as you know. I know you guys said he was good at Mississippi State, but not a huge fan. UNLV, they're 3-0. Yeah, I know. They started off the season hot, but I think they're still kind of getting used to this quarterback they have here, Colon. I don't know who this guy is, man. Colonoscopy. He's done all right for them, I guess. But look, I mean, their opponents, I mean, come on, man. They beat Idaho State. They only beat them by 7 as a huge favorite against an FCS team. That's not impressive. They beat Sam Houston. I know that was on the road, but Sam Houston, they're pretty new to FBS. They overperformed last year. That's not impressive either. So then what are we left with? They beat UCLA at home. I did say I thought UCLA was going to win that game, but UCLA, they're just in total disarray, man. And that was a big win for UNLV because they beat a Big Ten team. They beat UCLA. And what do I always talk about, or what did I just start talking about tonight as well? They went into a bye after that. So they went into the bye on like the best possible note. They're 3-0 to start the season. They beat probably, the biggest opponent they're going to face all season, a Big Ten opponent. They beat UCLA. They beat Nico and UCLA there, and that's how they went into the bye. And now they play a MAC team who is ass and hasn't even won a game yet, I don't think, before they go play, or maybe they won one game. No, they did win one game, I think, but we'll look in a second. Maybe they haven't. Yeah, they're playing a MAC team that I don't think they're going to pay attention to. They're having to go east to play an early start time, and I know I said that doesn't affect teams that much, but still, it's an unfamiliar travel spot for UNLV, and it is only their second road game. I wish it was their first, but still not that easy, and they do start conference play the following week. Or, excuse me, after another bye. They have another bye after this. What the fuck? This game is in a bye sandwich, which that sounds really weird. A bye sandwich, man, between, two bisexuals or whatever. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't think this is a good spot at all, man. Again, they went into that break on the highest note that they could have, beating a good, not a good team, but a big conference team like UCLA. Haven't lost a game yet. There's nothing that you have to fix during the bye, right? Like during the bye. So what are you really going to do to prepare for Miami, Ohio, who hasn't won a game yet? Like I said, Miami, Ohio's 0-2, but look at who they played. They've played the more difficult schedule so far. They played 2 Big Ten teams already. They actually held Wisconsin to 17 points. So, I mean, I know Wisconsin's quarterback got hurt in the game, but their backup quarterback actually played a little bit better. So, I mean, think about that what you will, but they actually didn't play that badly against Wisconsin, even though I know they didn't score. And then the Rutgers game, they were worrying me a little bit because I gave out Rutgers as a favorite in that game, and Miami, Ohio was kind of hanging around in that game. I know Miami, Ohio had to rebuild their offense this year behind Finn, but he's like a 7th-year senior or something. Finn, I think that's what he is. It's ridiculous with the way that you can redshirt multiple years now. So he's at least a guy that's been around for a long time. For Miami, Ohio. He's got a decent game under his belt. Now, he played pretty well, actually, that game against Rutgers. And then what did Miami, Ohio do? They went into a bye. So they had a bye at the best possible time because they went into the bye on the worst note possible. They haven't won a game yet. So you know they're going to be using that bye to prepare for this, try to fix some things. This is their home opener. They haven't even played a home game yet. So you know the crowd's going to be crazy for this game. It's the home opener. Everybody's going to show up for it, and they don't have a big game at all next week. They're playing an FCS team next week, Lindenwood. So this is one of their biggest remaining opponents on the entire schedule because they play all MAC opponents after Lindenwood. So huge. It's a huge game for Miami, Ohio, man. It's the last big conference opponent they're going to face. They might want to try to show up and get a win. And the line, it looks like they can. Who the fuck is going to want to take Miami, Ohio with a line like this? I know we lost some value. I wish we got it at +3. I get it. We're not going to see the +3 again, but this is some real line movement coming in towards Miami, Ohio here, man. So I know we're chasing a little bit here. The 2.5s are still out there. Hopefully they still are. I mean, if you want to take 1.5, I guess you could probably still do it. Maybe fire on the Miami, Ohio money line. It was 4 at some point on UNLV, and it's down to 1.5. 54% of tickets on UNLV. 54% of the cash coming in on Miami, Ohio. This is at noontime. It is on ESPN the U, not Miami. It's Miami playing on the U. Hey, that's crazy. But not Miami, Florida. That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, the money's coming in that way. I think this is a significant move through the 3. I think it is a professional side. I'm going to just suck it up, and I'm going to take it, man, with this one. I know you'd rather have the best of the key number 3. It's gone. I know I wish I saw this earlier, but this is this also is, a lesson in how you handicap buys, man. And hopefully it works out for me because that is how you handicap the buy situations. And we have inverted buy situations here with one team going to the buy on the best possible note, one team coming out of the buy, going into the buy on the worst possible note. And the team that went in on the best note hasn't lost a game yet. And the team that went in on the bad note hasn't won a game yet. So who in the right mind is going to see this? Even at the line of 4, the public is only going to want to play UNLV here, man. Who the hell is going to want to take the winless MAC team against an undefeated Mountain West team that just beat a Big Ten team? Yeah, the public's not going to do it. You gotta get ugly, man. If you want to actually do this and try to actually profit and make money, you got to get ugly, and that's what we're doing. We're getting ugly. Next up, we do get the best, pretty much the best of a key number here. I don't think you're going to get the hook on this, but we're going to go Memphis +7. We're going to fade Arkansas here. This is a spot where I think Arkansas is in a bad spot here. I think you will get the 7.5 here, man. Although cash percentage is on Arkansas right now, but I don't think it's going to be by the time the game kicks off, which is also at noon. This game is on ABC, so it gets a big billing on ABC. Home game for Memphis, so I think Memphis is really going to show up, man. They get to host an SEC team on national TV on ABC. That's a big spot for Memphis, man. So you're going to get focus out of Memphis here. Arkansas is up for 6.5 to 7. It's going through the 7. I think you will probably get the 7.5 on this one. So I would wait. If you don't see the 7.5 now, just wait. If you see it, take the 7.5. You get the hook on the 7.5. I'll probably score this at 7.5 because I think the 7.5 is probably actually even out there right now. 69% of tickets on Arkansas, 71% of the cash on Arkansas. But, yeah, again, I don't think that cash percentage is going to stay that way. Arkansas, I think this is a bad spot for Arkansas, man. And sometimes I talk about when a team loses their first game of the season, they have to turn around and play again. Sometimes they lose that game twice effectively because they're just hung over from losing that game. They weren't used to losing yet. I mean, Arkansas was rolling, although they rolled bad teams. I mean, Alabama, A&M, and then Arkansas State. But that was a huge game. They played against Ole Miss last week, man. They went on the road, played a ranked Ole Miss team. Big SEC game. It was their SEC opener, and it was fairly close. They lost by 6, and it was a 6-point game after Arkansas cut it to 6 with still 5 minutes left to go. So Arkansas had a chance, man. They were within 1 score for the final few minutes of that game. They had a chance to potentially win that game against Ole Miss. Fell just short. It's a big game for them. They actually outgained Ole Miss. So, yeah, you could say that Arkansas actually was better than they even looked in that game. That is true. So sometimes you don't want to fade a team that looked better than they looked, or that was a team that was better than they looked, and yes, they were, but that was a big game, man. Arkansas potentially had a shot to win that game at Ole Miss. And not only that, but now they have to play a second straight road game at Memphis, which is a down spot in Arkansas' schedule because it's a lesser conference team for them. Who do they play next? They play Notre Dame at home, and that's going to be one of their biggest home games of the season, man, prior to conference play resuming for Arkansas. So that's a huge game too, man. So this is a down spot for them. It's a sandwich spot between 2 big opponents. So I like this. Memphis, they're undefeated. I know they haven't really beaten anybody. They beat Chattanooga, Georgia State, Troy. Those last 2 teams are both wins on the road, though, those last 2 games against FBS opponents. And Memphis actually shut them down. Like Memphis, you don't really think of them as a defensive team, and I still don't really think they are. But Georgia State and Troy, they're not very good offenses, I don't think, but they really had some trouble scoring against Memphis. So it is possible that Memphis can hang in this game for sure. And again, it's a big game for Memphis, and it's their FBS home opener, too. In addition to all that, the only home game they played so far is against FCS Chattanooga. So this is a huge game for Memphis. And they're facing an SEC team. It's the only power conference team they're playing all season. So it's a huge game for Memphis. I think they're going to get up for it, man. And yeah, I know they're having to get used to Lewis being their quarterback now. They had Hennigan last year. I'm pretty sure Lewis, he seems like he's off to the races. And this Smith guy at running back, looks like he's putting up some decent numbers. I think this Memphis offense can do some things. It could be a little bit balanced. I know Arkansas does have the better defense. They're obviously the better team. But, we already see the cash percentage down to 67%. So the cash is already kind of coming in against them. So just be on the lookout for the 7.5, man. I would still take the +7 if you really don't see it. I like Memphis in that one. Yeah, we're talking about buys a lot. Talking about gays and straights a little bit too. I haven't talked about trans at all. You know what? I forgot to talk about Clemson and Syracuse. I mean, that game I actually do have a little bit of an opinion on, so I'll insert it in. This is not a best bet for me, but I'm just going to throw out my opinion on this real quick. Clemson, everybody's just shitting on Clemson, man. What is wrong with Clemson? They lost to LSU. But, I mean, come on. It's LSU, an SEC team, and you can't really fault Clemson for losing to LSU. A close game. And then Georgia Tech is better than people think they are, too. So I don't think you can fault Clemson for those losses. Yes, I know they didn't play well against Troy, but you remember I had Troy as a play on my show in that game, +31, because it was a sandwich spot for Clemson. It was a bad spot. I think this is a get-right spot for Clemson here, man. I know they're coming off kind of a big game-ish, but I actually think they bounce back here. And Syracuse, they're not. I mean, Syracuse is 2-1, and Clemson is 1-2. But come on, man, we know who the better team actually is. Syracuse's wins are against UConn, and they almost lost that game. And then they beat Colgate last week. Okay, an FCS team, whatever. Not impressed by that. So I actually do lean to Clemson in that game. Slightly, although the money's disagreeing with me. Clemson down from 17.5 to 17. But I think Clemson has to show up because they can still win the ACC, man. They're 0-1 in the ACC. Again, I know they're coming off a big game, but I think they're going to see that game as more of like an embarrassing game, more or less. So I don't think it's like a hangover spot. I mean, they have to get right at some point, but they do have 67% of tickets, only 60% of the cash. They're down from 17.5 to 17 here, but Syracuse, they're just bad, man. Again, the records of these teams are a little bit misleading. And Clemson, they can still win the ACC. They're only 0-1 in the ACC right now. Do you think any team is going to go undefeated in the ACC? Probably not. So Clemson, they can still win the conference, man. They just got to make the conference championship. So they're not out of it. No dream crusher scenario there. So those are my thoughts on that game real quick. Let's get to the other two best bets. That was the intermission. I told you ugly, ugly, ugly. We're going to go, this is as ugly as it gets probably. Kennesaw State plus the 4.5. I know this line was 6.5 at some points. I actually saw the opener was 7, but I don't really think that the 7 was really ever out there. So you don't have to be too disappointed about that. I know 7 is a very key number, but I still like this at plus 4.5. This is fading Arkansas State down from 7 to 4.5. Really, I think it was down from 6.5 to 4.5. I know better to get the better numbers, but 6.5 to 4.5 is not really that. You're not losing that much value there between those two numbers. The 5s are all dead numbers for the most part because the game rarely lands on that number on 5. 66% of tickets, 82% of the cash on Kennesaw. I don't really even think what public bettor is coming in on Kennesaw State? So I don't even think that's accurate. I think maybe it's just because the public's just not betting this game at all. I mean, there are bigger games to bet on the board, so the public's probably not even betting this game at all. So when you see a percentage like that, keep that in mind that it's actually probably professional bettors that are making it so that 66% of the tickets are on Kennesaw. It's probably some of it is probably more professional than recreational on that, but the cash is coming even more so on Kennesaw, 82% of the cash, which kind of confirms my thinking on that again there. Where is this game? These are the night games. So we have 2 noon games. Then we have a couple of games in the evening. This is at 6 p.m. only on ESPN Plus. Isn't that just great? This is a fade of Arkansas State, though, more than it is a play on Iowa State. I think it's a bit of a sandwich spot, or at least it's a hangover spot for Arkansas State. Arkansas State, they won their opener against SEMO, Southeast Missouri State. That's an FCS team. Then they had a game against Arkansas. Obviously, they were not expected to win against Arkansas, but Arkansas State, it's a big game for them because it's an in-state little brother situation. Arkansas blew them out. But then what did Arkansas State do last week? They hung with Iowa State, man, who's ranked in the top 15 and is undefeated. Arkansas State only lost that game by 8 points as 20.5-point underdogs, and they were in this game. They were losing by 1 point in the fourth quarter, man. So Arkansas State had a huge game there against Iowa State, and they came close to pulling off a ridiculous upset, and now they're coming off of that. I talk about this. When you have a team that was a huge underdog, and they played this big, big game, and they actually came that close to pulling off an upset, they're going to be in a hangover spot the next week, man. So I think that's the case with Arkansas State. And they're having to go on the road for this to Kennesaw. And they're not used to playing there because Kennesaw isn't in their conference. Kennesaw is new to FBS. I don't think Arkansas State, I don't know if they've ever played at Kennesaw State before, to be honest. So it's a weird travel spot for them. Weird game. And then they do start conference play next week. I know it's against UL Monroe. UL Monroe's not good, but UL Monroe is a divisional foe in the Sun Belt. Arkansas State and UL Monroe are both in the Sun Belt West, and that's going to be Arkansas State's first conference game. So that's a pretty big game for them, man. So I think that makes it a little bit of a sandwich spot as well, if it's not already selling you on this game on just the fact that it's a major hangover spot. Kennesaw State, I mean, they actually faced a couple of big conference opponents so far. Their 2 losses are to ACC and Big Ten teams. They actually only lost at Wake Forest by 1 point in the first week, so they hung with Wake Forest. So I know Wake's not good in the ACC, but that was an 18.5-point spread in that game, and Kennesaw held them to 10 points and hung right in that game. So Kennesaw played competitively there. And then, yeah, they got blown out by Indiana, but we know Indiana has a really good offense. But, I mean, a little bit more battle testing for Kennesaw. And then Kennesaw, I talk about this, they got the monkey off their back last week with a win. I know it was against an FCS opponent in Merrimack. Merrimack actually almost beat Kent State. They're playing all the K's, which was hilarious that they almost beat Kent State. And then your guy, what was his name? DeReason, whatever the hell his name was. Something Clark, DeReality, whatever his name was. I forget his name, whatever that guy's name was. That guy, Clark. Had like a kick return touchdown for Merrimack for Kent State to beat Merrimack. Merrimack, maybe they're not that bad of an SEC, not that bad of an FCS team, to be honest. But Kennesaw did beat them last week at home, and I talk about that again. Kennesaw got that monkey off their back because they hadn't won a game yet. I know it wasn't against an FBS foe. They were up to a 17.5-point favorite in that game. They didn't cover, but they got the win. So that's good because that means they get that monkey off their back. They don't have to worry about the fact they haven't won a game yet. And now they get to just kind of play. And they play Arkansas State here. I mean, it's not really a play on Kennesaw State, though. I mean, I think that makes it a slightly positive spot, starting some like new momentum there. But really, I think it's just a bad spot for Arkansas State. So we will go with Kennesaw State plus the points. I know it's ugly, man. And the last game is the one that is the only one of the games I have a play on that people actually are going to want to watch this game, that people think is important. You guys are going to hate me for this. Yeah, DeRealist Clark, that's his name. Yeah, DeTotus Clark. Is it DeRealist? DeRealtor? I don't know. DeReality TV. We're going to go with Florida plus 7.5. I told you. You're going to hate me for this. Nobody thinks that Florida has a chance in this game at this point, man. Nobody does. But let's think about it for a minute. I mean, first of all, 7.5. I mean, this looks way too easy. Miami is ranked 4th in the country, and Florida's unranked right now, and everybody's just shitting on Florida. Miami's only laying a little bit over a touchdown here, down from 8.5 to 7.5. I mean, anywhere in that price range, obviously, is fine. You can take +8, whatever it is out there. 80% of tickets, only 71% of the cash on Miami. Miami is extremely public with less of the cash on them. Miami ranked 4th in the country, Florida unranked, and yet Miami's only a 7.5-point favorite at home. So the odds makers are basically telling you that these teams are only separated by really maybe even like 3-4 points. So that doesn't seem right? Like the public's going to see that and think this is easy, man. And not only that, but they're going to think this is even easier because what did Miami do? Last week, I gave out Miami on the show, remember? So this is how I do it, man. I'm on one team one week and I'm going against them the next week. So that's what I do. I gave out Miami last week, and they blew out South Florida. And why did I like Miami in that game? Because South Florida was coming off upsetting Florida and over-celebrating. And I thought that was just such a monumental win that even though South Florida was a big game against Miami as well, I just thought they celebrated so much. It was just such a big game against Florida. South Florida was just being overrated. I thought, Miami's just going to blow them out. And that's what happened. So I got that right. But now think about this. The public's going to see this and see that Miami just beat South Florida 49-12. South Florida beat Florida. So what are people going to think about this game? It's only a 7.5-point spread. They're going to think, if Miami can beat South Florida by 30 whatever points and South Florida beat Florida, then Miami should beat Florida by 30 or 40 points, right? This is easy. Well, it doesn't work that way at all, man. It's all about the situation. You can't overreact to one individual result like this at all, man. The rankings makers don't tell you exactly what the story is. Florida is better than South Florida is. That's just the way that it is. Even though Florida did lose that game, no odds maker in the right mind is gonna not have Florida be like a double-digit favorite against South Florida. Miami, I know they look good. They beat South Florida. They blew them out, but South Florida's not that good. Miami beat Bethune-Cookman. Who cares about that? And then they won in a close game against Notre Dame where Notre Dame's quarterback was basically playing his first real game as a starter, whereas Miami just came into the season almost ready to go with Carson Beck there. I know Carson Beck's good. I know he's used to facing SEC defenses, but this is going to be the first SEC defense that he's facing this year, man. And Florida, they just need the game more, man. And Miami does have Florida State up next. So is it possible that Miami actually even overlooks Florida here? Miami has a bye next, and then they have Florida State. I don't know. I mean, it seems ridiculous to think that they might overlook the University of Florida. But Florida, I mean, they're just looking so bad. They've just had a down, like multiple years at this point, they've been down. So I don't know, man. But Florida, they face a more difficult schedule somewhat. I mean, both teams face South Florida. Yeah, Florida lost at home by 2. I know that Miami's game was also at home. Florida played LSU last week, so I know Florida is coming off a tough game against LSU, but there's no way that Florida could possibly overlook Miami here, man. And they know they have Texas next, which is, that's a game that they probably are not going to win either. I mean, I would guess so. They got to get this win, man. Billy Napier, I mean, his career, it's on the line here, man. If he loses this game badly, he's going to get fired. So there's that aspect too. I don't know if the team likes him, though, if they really want to help him out and play well for him here. But I think he's got to get a win here, man. And Florida, I mean, yeah, they lost to South Florida. It was just kind of a weird game. You know, South Florida obviously got up for that game in a big way. I want to see the statistics in this game for a minute here. If you look at the stats in this game, yes, South Florida did outplay them slightly on the stat sheet here, although Florida did outpossess them. So I guess, yeah, not much to take away from that. Then Florida against LSU last week. Florida actually was in this game, man. LSU, we know LSU is probably taking a little bit of a step forward here. Florida was actually down to a 5.5-point favorite by the time that game tipped off. They were a 7-point underdog for a while. Florida was in that game, man. They were only down 3 at halftime. And then for some reason, just no points were scored again from third quarter on. Neither offense scored in the entire second half. That last touchdown for LSU was a huge interception return touchdown. So this is a pretty misleading result, to be honest here, man. Florida, they actually outgained LSU in this game, but they had 5 turnovers. Florida lost the turnover battle by -4. LSU only had 10 first downs. So, I mean, Florida should have won this game, man. They first down LSU 23-10. They outpossessed them by 15 minutes, and they outgained them. So stat sheet says Florida should have won this game. I mean, it's ridiculous that they didn't win this game based on those stats. So this game was not what it appeared, man. And again, yes, I know it was a big game. Normally I'd say Florida's going to be in a hangover spot coming off a game like that, but you're not going to be unfocused against Miami, man, all right? Florida needs to get the win here. They're the team that everybody's shitting on right now. Everybody's hyping Miami right now. Holy shit, Miami looks good. They're ranked 4th in the country now. I can tell you right now, Miami's not the 4th best team in the country. They're not actually a top 5 team. They're probably like a top 15 team. Yes, their offense is good, but the other thing is their defense isn't actually that good. Florida's defense is solid. Florida is the way better of these two defenses, actually. So you're getting points with the better defense, too. And I talk about that, too. That's another thing you're getting with Florida here. You're getting the better defense, getting points here. Sure, Miami has the better offense. Florida, their offense is capable of more than what they've done so far with Lagway. I mean, he's, I guess, still trying to get his bearings here. He started some of their games last year, but I think this is his first full season there. At some point, Florida's got to get on track here, man. Florida's just not as bad as they look. Florida probably should still be a ranked team, in my opinion. I don't think they're not one of the top 25 best teams in the country, and I think Miami is just overrated. So this is value here, man. And you listen to everybody out there talking about this. Everybody's hyping Miami, and everybody's shitting on Florida. So when I hear all that going on, and people think that it's just absolutely impossible, and absolutely nobody's going to want this one, that's what I do. And then, of course, it really sold me with the fact that Miami blew out South Florida and South Florida beat Florida. You can't really get a better situation than that. The public does, it's like I call it the transitive property, where if Team A beat Team B and Team B beat Team C, then that means Team A must beat Team C, right? That's just not the way it works, because everything's an independent result in a different situation. So, and like I said, Florida is actually a better team than South Florida. So that's it, man. Florida plus the points. I know you guys hate that one, but I like it. It's one of my more favorite plays, actually. I kind of like all of them this week, so hopefully we get it. Let's get it. I'm very selective here with a ton of games on the board, and I narrow it down to only 4, so I'm more selective here than I am probably in baseball and whatever. Although baseball I do totals too, which is the reason why I have more baseball plays. Let's not talk about that total anymore today. I don't even want to talk about it in the morning, but I'll be back in the morning. Once again, my plays here: Miami, Ohio plus the 2.5, Memphis plus 7, Kennesaw State plus 4.5, and Florida plus 7.5. Probably can get Memphis 7.5 and Florida plus 8. Really, although plus 8 really doesn't matter that much. But either way, That's going to do it. Learn to Tone on Twitter. Learn to Tone on Instagram. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Bettor Off Dead. You can find me on audio. Go listen there. That helps me out as well. Give me a good review on Apple and Spotify. Covered in Uke on YouTube. You can check that out, too. Try to get that going a little bit to my ukulele channel. And then patreon.com/learn to toad. There are some bonus ukulele things on there as well. That's going to do it, man. Nate, Justin, Mr. Cover, these Twitter guys who are not the regulars, and DJ. Just not a lot of guys in the chat tonight, unfortunately. I think we get more usually. Everybody's busy tonight, I guess, but that's going to do it. I'll be back in the morning because we got to talk about WNBA and Major League Baseball, I guess, in the morning. And I'll give up these plays one more time, but the analysis is on this show, so enjoy it. I'll be back in the morning, and that's going to do it for now, man. Peace.